Chapter 051. Thank you for your continued support. After a while, Stark ran this way when he had nothing to do, which made Anson irritated for a while. Wanda rolled her eyes. Don't think that giving us an identity can make up for your mistakes. Stark shrugged. Of course. But I'm also trying to change. Pietro, oh, you still haven't realized. Really, you look like an older child in my eyes. How do you maintain decades of naivety? Stark. Spencer, sir, do I need to leave dinner for you? Of course. Mr. Spencer, is it still dragon meat today? Yes. Then I'll ask for an extra dragon chop. In other words, you don't have anything to do? Said Anson, looking at him helplessly. Stark patted a red and gold chest at his feet, a modified mark armor. You know, I'm pretty much fine with it. But Anson sensed something in his tone keenly, and looked closely at Stark. Yes. Palladium poisoning? Hey, did you get anything today? In the villa? Stark shook his head and looked slightly downcast. Pabo stepped forward and handed over a glass of water, only to see Stark drinking their chlorophyll juice and put it back. It seems that they don't really approve of you. The siblings. Alas, take your time. Mika Military and Rhodes are looking for you, because of Mark Armor. And there have been some fluctuations within our company recently. The two looked at each other. Ordinary people generally only see their scenery, but never think that they will also suffer, such as now. Countless people are peeping at Stark's warframe technology, and if they are not careful, I am afraid that even Stark Industry will be swallowed and wiped clean. That is called capital, which can create both beautiful and evil things. Late. Anson opened and closed his eyes again. In a small pink room in the manor, Mindy jumped up and disappeared into the manor, followed by the Big Daddy storage room. There was a man lying inside covered in blood, looking at his wounds in pain. Before he could bandage it, the cold touch was already behind his head. Having played with guns for many years, he knew what this thing was, and raised his hands to show that he was safe. Sir, I'm afraid it's not okay to break into someone's house in the middle of the night. Girls? No, it's little girls. John and Freelancer turned their heads, and Mindy was holding a desert eagle in his purple pajamas, his eyes playful. Sorry, I arrived here by accident, not intentionally, and besides, the little girl may not be able to master this gun, believe me. Mindy tilted his head. So, you're a good person? It should be. Fact, it seems that I can't kill you. John, I thought, if you can you give me some cable ties? No, you can't go. Big Daddy opened the door and walked in. What do you mean? John frowned. I don't care what your identity is, why you're here, obviously you've brought trouble here. John seemed to have thought of something. He offended some people. No, a whole force, and those people obviously came here to chase him. Thinking about the style of those people. John struggled with the pain and tried to stand up. Mindy, what do you want to do? I can't stay here any longer. I have to leave, or you'll all be affected by me. Besides, John took out a gold coin. It's my gift. Damon's daddy blocked the exit. I said, you can't leave. Where do you think this is? One grabbed John and brought it to Anson and threw it on the carpet. Anson stroked the cat with one hand while looking at John, who was covered in blood. Spencer said the situation on the side. High table. So, you're John and Freelancer who broke the rules of the Continental Hotel, Mr. Death? Mindy was obviously unhappy when he heard this name. I feel like I could hit him 10. John does not explain. Sir, since you know about the high platform table and the Continental Hotel, then you should let me leave. Spencer smiled and said, Mr. Freelancer, if you don't have anything urgent, don't be in such a hurry. Obviously no one outside dares to come in now, right? John yelling. Yes, this is obviously not the style of the Continental Hotel. The Continental Hotel not only has countless madman killers, but also controls countless underworld forces, and most of the areas are obviously useless to these people. Conventional deterrence does not apply to unruly people like madmen and underworlds. At the same time, S.H.I.E.L.D. received the same news. Director Fury, are we going to do something? Coulson was clearly worried. The power that Anson holds is really a bit perverted for people in the regular world, and once Anson is allowed to let go, I am afraid that the world will change. Obviously, it does not match the original intention of S.H.I.E.L.D. Fury shook his head. No, the Continental Hotel has been too active recently. Let them touch their iron plate themselves, and let Anson's little rabbit cub expose more things. Tell you not to interfere with this event. What if the control is exceeded? Nope. Anson is very scheming, especially in his grasp of things, not at all like an 11-year-old child. More like an old Yinbi, and if it really exceeds expectations, isn't that what they'd be more happy to see? Manor. Anson frowned. Mr. Spencer, it seems that there are still many things you haven't told me. Spencer was a little embarrassed. When Anson's parents died accidentally, the old housekeeper almost had to be buried in their whole world, in order to find out who was behind the scenes. He thought of various ways, among which the dark forces were one. Not only the High Table, but even the League of Assassins has the shadow of the Pendra family. And the director of the textile factory has had a lot of cooperation with Spencer. Crazy. Young master, that's all. Turned to look at John. Is he valuable? According to the information currently available, This Mr. Freelancer is the ace killer of their Continental Hotel, and it is said that no target can survive under him. The specific reason this time can probably be seen as a dog, a car. How many kills? 439. Mindy and the Big Daddy obviously paused. This amount is extremely incredible no matter what period it is. The Freelancer shook his head. No, 440 to be exact. No one knows about one falling into their sea. The information says you've been retired for a few years. Why did you reappear? The rules of the Continental Hotel never give up on the hunt, and I want to end it. Anson nodded. Well, I have a job for you, Mr. Freelancer. If you accept that you will become a member of their Pendra family, and I will solve the trouble at the high table for you. Deal? Chapter 052. John looked at Spencer, and then at Anson, and he couldn't see anything about the aristocratic temperament of these two. But the Big Daddy and the little girl on the side are obviously not simple characters, and he even feels a sense of oppression in these two. As a killer or an ace killer, he is sure of his instincts. These two men can threaten him. What do I need to do? Gatekeeper. The Pendra family's manor lacks a gatekeeper, and you, as an ace killer, should be able to show me the door. Huh? Spencer held up his thumb, and the young master was really elegant. The gatekeepers use this kind of guarded one. I suggest you accept, Mr. Freelancer. John shrugged. If you really can, sir, I'm happy to accept your offer. Mr. Spencer, be specific. Young master, because Mr. Freelancer broke the rules, the Continental Hotel needed to maintain the rules they set, so there was a small who took the throne. If you want to get the power of the high table, you are just a second generation to prove your ability. Who? A little Marquis of Enamelance, it seems to be called. Yes, it's Gremont. In other words, we also have an identity, right? Yes, young master, the hereditary dukedom of the Pendra family. Well, universal. This is determined by all royal families. Of course, this has to say that the kinship between Britain and European royalty. Anyway, there are relatives everywhere. John was slightly confused. I just found a resting place in a panic, and I met a duke. So how do we solve the future doorman thing? Spencer smiled and said, no need to solve it. Oh? Young master, there are 12 main seats at the high table, and we are one of them, but one of the heirs of the Spencer family is in the hands, so others can't find it. All it takes is our people to give him a chance, and all his wanted wants will be revoked. But if you want to solve this matter completely, it is better to use the rules of the high table. John, what rules? You can challenge the person who posted the source of the hunt against you. I agree. No, Mr. Freelancer, it's not that simple. You need to prove your worth. Anson smiled. Indeed. Mr. Freelancer, do you accept that? John knelt down on one knee and said solemnly, I served at the high table, and now I will be loyal to your excellency. Very good. You just need to go to Stark's house tonight to paint a cat on his face, and then take the picture for me. Friendly reminder, Stark has artificial intelligence in his home. Outside those, Spencer, it's not our problem, is it? Nodded. I need some guns. Follow me. Mindy jumped ahead. Anson, Mr. Spencer, tell me something I don't know about the family business yet. I'm interested. Of course, young master. How many properties does the Pendra family hold? Anson didn't know. He only knew that Spencer had told him that the Pendra family controlled at least 30% of the world's industry. But when he understood it specifically, he found that it was really huge. Do you believe that even a roadside stall could be the property of the Pendra family? This person today, no problem, right? Young master, I have checked all his data, there is no problem. It is really just a coincidence to come to the manor. Anson had to think more. Now because Stark announced his identity as Iron Man in a high-profile manner, many bulls, ghosts, snakes and gods began to emerge. Well, he himself too. Although he doesn't use magic in many cases, he doesn't deliberately hide it when helping Wanda kill the Iron Overlord. Hydra knows, which means that the whole world knows. The only thing that is certain is that Hydra has not yet found him. After Anson returned to the Marvel world, he carefully thought about the car accident of his cheap parents in this life, and Hydra may not know their identity. If they had gone out with security personnel, Hydra would not have succeeded. Too free. Next, John returned, and Anson looked at the photos on his phone. Stark was sleeping with a little young model, but his face was graffiti into a cat-like shape. Well, there was a sense of art in a postmodern style. Not bad. He could imagine what this guy would be like when he woke up in the morning. Fuck. Jarvis, where did you die? Sir, the power went off last night. No, don't you have backup power? Sir, the backup power supply is also out of power. Stark's face was dark, and people could quietly enter his house today, and they also made a graffiti on his handsome face, and tomorrow he could die at home. No, you have to upgrade the security level. Also upgrade Jarvis. Hell. Who can understand his mood now? The paint for this shit is not easy to Washington. Can't he buy a few paints? Mr. Spencer, you can arrange it. Young master, if John is allowed to duel with that Marquis, he can actually have an auxiliary person to help, and he may not personally take action. What do you mean? Spencer looked at John gently. Mr. John had better strike personally. Moreover, if you need to be seriously injured. I got to know the Marquis, he is very arrogant. If Mr. John is seriously injured, he should be very interested in ending your legend himself. John's eyes lit up. I can. Good. Spencer immediately picked up the phone and instructed his nephew that he was in charge of the high table, and John would launch a duel against the Marquis de Gramont in his name. After the matter is handled, the high table will witness everything, but for the sake of insurance, I think the young master can also make a little insurance for him. That kind of thing? Spencer nodded. That's fine. John was stunned. What the hell was this talking about? He only knew that he was probably a great person, and when did the high table become a casual and desirable identity? The high table has always been mysterious. This is especially true of the elders who control behind them, and now someone tells him that one of his sons and nephews is the elder of the high table. Enamelance, a certain horse factory. What do you mean? John duel me? Yes, Marquis Gramont. Moreover, the family advises you to agree, and not to mention this matter again, and do not find out why, otherwise you will be removed from the family. Give him up? Why? We can't afford to mess with it. I know, John will get what he wants. Young master, does this John have any effect on us? Spencer bewildered. Anson nodded silently. In fact, he didn't like these guys eating in the sewers if it wasn't necessary. Without it, the group wouldn't have followed the rules. Don't you think wizards' lives are too comfortable? And honestly, if there is no magic, maybe any punk can put them down. Spencer looked up. There will be chaos in the wizarding world? Maybe, but it's good to be prepared. Chapter 053. 5 days later, Anson and the others came to Elancy. The day of the duel, there were no moths present, but the Marquis did apply for an assistant to duel in his place, and he also met Anson, who was sitting on the side. Even the people who came from the high table could only stand, but the child was sitting, and his identity was visible. Is it he who disgraces himself? Gramont, hereditary Marquis of Elancy. Hello sir. Reach out. Spencer shook it. Mr. Marquis, my young master doesn't like to shake hands with people, but it's nice to meet you. Anson nodded. The second generation, whom Spencer called a deflated calf, is actually not so unbearable, but is just eager to prove himself in the family. Of course, according to Spencer, such a person will be fine if he dies. As for the duel, turn-based. In the end, with John killing his assistant, Gramont had to go up himself, but with another gun under the Revenant. On the return flight, Mindy looked helpless. I thought the killer's duel would be more interesting. That's it? John shook his head helplessly. After being inscribed by Anson, what kind of rule is it? He understood that he would have a palpitation when he saw Mindy and Big Daddy. Powerful. My body seems to be getting stronger day by day. Incredible. And Anson also called this method magic. But it doesn't matter. The important thing is that he is safe now. Master Anson, what do I need to do in the future? It's nothing. It's just training some people. I think it shouldn't be difficult for you. Training? This is Anson's best use of John. Thanks to the old-fashioned nature of the wizarding world, even the way of fighting is ancient and clumsy. Throwing a stick and throwing a ray is called a battle. In Anson's understanding, if the future battle is carried out in this way, it will be the end of how many deaths. And John, the killer race, knows best what it means to kill the opponent directly and cleanly. How to come most directly. This is where wizards need to change. Of course, not all battles in the wizarding world are thrown with wooden sticks and lost light, such as the battle between Old Deng and Grindelwald. Dumbledore perfectly explains what is called the growth of the old Yinbi. Phantom transfiguration is a sharp saw. The haunted have been taken by him as a flash. Combined with the wizard's weird methods, as long as you hit the enemy, it will inevitably be the end of death. But the current wizarding world seems to have forgotten this way of fighting. Everyone is more familiar with standing in pairs like fools, and then beating each other. Merlin's great beauty can't bear to look directly. Avalon Manor. John meets the people he needs to train, a group of wizards in magical robes and wooden sticks. God, is this true? Anson, if you're not mistaken, that's real, and Damon, you're in charge of their physical strength training. Don't worry. Damon wasn't as shocked as John. For him, he had seen magical magic many times. So, after the wizards were unilaterally put down by John many times without being able to use magic, it's time to learn. Sneak attack halfway, set traps, surround John, or sneak attack in your sleep kind of learning. But when Anson joins the clan and can let them use magic, things start to get interesting again. The wizards never thought that the wizards who should have faced each other face to face suddenly appeared behind them, suddenly appeared on their side. Give you a weapon to get rid of you when they eat. Young master, this way of fighting will be ridiculed. There were wizards muttering. Anson glared. Guys, what is the purpose of the battle? Win? No, it's a big mistake. The purpose of the battle is always only one, that is, to put down the other party. Today you can just use the weapon that removes you. What if it's a life spell? Do you still have the strength to come here and argue with me? Sighed. Wanda. Pietro and Mindy watched the scene with their cheeks on their cheeks. How do I feel? As if he thinks there will be a big war in the future. To be honest, a wizard's casual magic is enough for many people, right? Who knows? Wanda, Won't you be able to learn magic in the future? Will you need to be trained just like them in the future? Wanda was stunned. It should. No, Anson said that I have a very good talent and will be strong in the future. Well, she did get a little worried. Recently, the wizards in the manor can exercise every day, although their strength is already strong, according to Mindy's father Damon. These people are just empty power. It's just trolls. Well, I don't know what trolls are. It sounds like a good thing. If she needs that too. Hey, that picture is so beautiful. She didn't want to look. But if you don't have strength, you can't protect Anson, you can't protect Pietro. For days on end, wizards still reject such training. Anson's face was indifferent. Everyone, if you can't meet my requirements, I will send you back. Please rest assured, you will get the ordinary life you are happy to have. Everyone froze. It's better to kill them. The Pendra family has countless magic books to read, countless resources to use, and even worry about the threat from the Dark Lord. Once they leave the Pendra family, they will be nothing. Do you want to go back to the little lamb who is lost in the alley? And then come to a love spell? Never. Young master, we can do it. Yes. Anson raised a finger. Once, you only have one chance. There are people in the wizarding world who are willing to replace you. Another week later, in the forest outside the castle. Today is a good day for hunting. Except for the direct death spell such as the death spell, all of them are available without restrictions, and even Mindy and Damon and John are involved. The original security guards in the manor, Zhao, were inscribed with the rules of trolls or dragons by Anson. They act as the battle objects of wizards. Moreover, they can use thermal weapons. Outside, Spencer was slightly worried. Young master, despite the presence of Bai Xian and the medical team, isn't this too risky? No, they only want to stay alive if they have experienced death. It's not elimination, it's reality, Mr. Spencer. Hearing this, he stopped talking. The young master was getting more and more anxious, and he didn't know why. With the sound of the huge bell tower next to the castle, the security personnel in the forest began to form a formation to surround the ground inside. Guys, just follow the predetermined plan. You know, wizards are powerful, but their brains are a little rigid. Hey, Mr. John, we're not vegetarians. Mindy poked his head out of the grass. Opposite her, there was a wizard hiding on a tree trunk. Chapter 054. Mindy was even thinking, which fool hid so obviously? Holding a pistol aimed at the wizard's thigh, she thought about it and moved it up a few more inches. Well, she was satisfied with this position. Bang! The dense forest was startled by the sound of gunfire. What's going on? Got through? Not good. Mindy, who had just realized that something was wrong, turned his head and was about to run. Who expected his body to fly in the air as if he had been lifted up by something. Hands and feet struggled. It's a pity that without the focus point, she can't play the advantages of her body at all. The wizard walked out, his wand still shining. Miss Mindy, oh no, I should say Miss Thyroot Terminator, but let me catch you. Hey, let go of Miss Ben. You used the illusion spell, right? Not bad, for the colleagues who were hit in the thigh by you in the past. Don't wow. One threw into the distance, looking at the height and arc, at least no less than 50 meters. Mindy withdraws from the battlefield. Tweet. Mindy, who had just been smashed into the mud, had a frustrated face and vomited. Which shit peed here? Scenes like this continued to take place in the Avalon Forest, and the footage is captured and transmitted by surveillance equipment in the woods. Spencer sighed. I thought that they would be the opponents of wizards after being transformed by the young master, but I didn't expect that the 373 wizard could be so beyond common sense. Yes, it's a little hard to understand indeed. From here, we can also see the perversion of wizards' methods. Mindy, John, and even the Big Daddy and the security personnel of the manor were almost all inscribed on the soul of Anson. Their strength, reflexes, speed, and resistance to blows far surpass those of humans, especially those who have inscribed the rules of the dragon, according to Anson's prediction. Once developed, it is completely possible to fight the Hulk. Undoubtedly very much to look forward to. But now these people are not able to pose much threat to wizards. What is the essence of magic? As Anson mentioned earlier, it's the rules. This rule is born in the universe, is the core of the operation of the universe, and just like physical phenomena, actual existence and influence everything. Wizards simply use magic to drive these rules. It's a coincidence. Therefore, the magic methods used by wizards are also powerful. Briefly demonstrate, such as the repair spell, restore the original spell. According to the conventional understanding of wizards, it is impossible for wizards to know how a damaged object is composed of, and what it is made of, so they think that it is their thoughts that work. Strictly speaking, that's true. Restoring an object to its own condition, and it's worth noting what is the standard for how intact it is. In the wizard's cognition, it must be what he thinks is intact, not what should be intact. A bit round. Everyone can understand that the wizard actually does not know how much intact it should be considered intact, so why is the object really intact after using the repair spell? Here, a basic computer knowledge is used to support it, and the universe is regarded as a carrier that can store huge information, and the birth and disappearance of anything must produce information and preserve. And when wizards use magic, they are just extracting the original data from the huge information base of the universe to restore it. So, strictly speaking, it is not a wizard who plays a role. It's the rules, or the universe itself to be precise. The root of wizard control is the power that belongs to the universe. If you look at it this way, do you still feel that the power under the wizarding system is weak? Imagine if it is possible to repair a broken planet with a repair spell, and if its own magic is enough, then wizards under the Anson system can do it. The magic power under the wizard system is not only not weak, but in his opinion, it is ridiculously powerful. Yes, they are not as dazzling and versatile as Carmitage secret mages, nor can they open any door to shuttle through the space at will. But they don't need to borrow power like the demon god to cast spells, which is simply against some guidelines under Marvel's mysterious side system. Half hour. John and the others walked out of the deep forest in frustration. Sorry Mr. Anson, we lost. Anson nodded. Don't be frustrated, you guys have done a good job. Wanda, so you're going to fight them next? Anson, of course, they have some pride, and I think proud people deserve to be taken seriously. After lowering his head and saluting everyone slightly, he took out his dragon heartstring wand, and did not use the world wand, which seemed a bit bullying. The voice of the broadcast suddenly sounded in the forest. Anson enters the battlefield. The 50 wizards who should have been excited suddenly froze. The young master is also here. Just looking at each other, they all laughed badly. Cloudy, misty. Raising his wand, Anson stood outside the forest and chanted a spell, and suddenly spit out smoke from the tip of his wand and drifted towards the forest. This is a variant spell similar to a weather spell. However, it is not as powerful as the weather spell, but it is just right to use it in this place. The average wizard will choose to use it to hide his figure, and the effect is very good. Similarly, there is a spell called Gravity Mist, but the effect of Gravity Fog is to make the person who enters the fog feel no sense of direction, and it can't break the fog. Cloudy, misty. Several times in a row, when the forest was completely covered in fog, Anson cast another phantom spell on himself. Only then did he walk into the forest with a smile. Hell, this must be the ghost of the young master. What to do? It's a kind of weather spell. Well, do you feel something approaching? There was a wizard who frowned. The 5 wizards who Ben had gathered in one place suddenly felt bad. From the fog came the sound of crackling, getting closer and closer. But the visibility under the fog will not exceed 3 meters, and they will not find anything at all. Bright as day, the wizard's wand suddenly emitted a fan-shaped light, shining into the fog like sunlight, but the situation outside made them angry. Merlin's little intestine. A series of tree roots crawled on the ground like dense snakes, and when the light shone, they all wrapped around the wizard as if they had found prey. That's called a quick transfiguration charm. Anson did not show his figure, and casually petrified and rushed to the next place. Wanda spread out her hands. Isn't it supposed to be a very showy fight, or a very weird fight? John shook his head. No, Miss Wanda. The real battle is often won in an instant. It doesn't matter what means you use. The important thing is that you win, because the price of losing is often death. No one wants to bear the price. Chapter 055. On the other hand, after feeling Anson's strength, the remaining wizards chose to gather in one place, intending to rely on numbers to confront Anson. One by one, they held their wands and looked slightly urgent. However, the large number is obviously not the key to whether the wizard can win. Otherwise, there would not be so many people who were afraid of Dumbledore and Voldemort. Tap tap. When Anson came out of the deep forest and lifted the illusion spell, the wizards were visibly relieved. In the fog, they couldn't find an invisible wizard, not to mention a wizard that none of them dared to say that they could take down one-on-one. Now, Anson obviously wanted to fight them directly. This is good. Why? Do you want to strike together? Young master, you are as powerful as Professor Dumbledore, and this is probably our only chance to win. Anson shrugged. Doesn't matter. So, except for your weapons, quick confinement, all petrochemical. The light on the wand hit each other in the center, and the air exploded and lifted the fallen leaves that fell to the ground, and even the trees on one side were shaking. First inning, draw. It's not important, it's just probing. In the next second, some wizards couldn't help but step forward and shout, faint, faint. Anson, metamorphosis. The mud and sand on the ground gathered in the air to form a wall of earth, blocking the fainting ground and just shattering to reveal the wizard opposite. Just when everyone felt bad, Anson's next magic had already come. Swift confinement. The vine popped out of the ground and crawled towards the group of wizards, just trapped around before they could react. It's getting bigger. Rumble. The originally small vine instantly became larger as if it violated the common sense of physics, and under the sudden deformation, the wizards were directly swept away by the huge vine. Volume after the enlargement. Don't wait for landing. The vine entangled everyone again. Seal the tongue and lock the throat. There was a foreign body sensation in the throat, and even a clear tone could no longer be made. In just a moment, these adult wizards were directly put down. If Anson had ended up using not a tongue lock on them, but a death spell or some other black magic, then their fate would have been predictable. Silence for a moment. Stop the curse. Young master. Ashamed, they didn't even dare to look Anson in the eye, and now they were more like being slapped by Anson than the pride they had when they won Mindy. The clouds cleared. The clouds in the forest dissipated as if nothing had happened. Anson shook his head. He's still too anxious. The status quo in the wizarding world is difficult to change, and even with his intervention, their recruited wizards do not seem to realize the importance of life and death. They didn't even think about what power they had at their disposal. He was a little angry. I think you know. The Pendra family has done something to Voldemort, and many of you are, even the ones who did it, waiting for us to return. Anson's gaze swept over them. Do you think we'll get along with them safely? Nope. This is absolutely impossible. If you can't become strong and won't change yourself, I don't want to help you collect your corpses one day. Embarrassed, I almost snapped a Hogwarts out of the dirt with my toe. Just imagine, Anson has only been at Hogwarts for a year to learn magic, although the talent is powerful, and the family has a large collection of books with a part of the bonus. But they were different, and some of them were even former Voldemort's men, known as the Rampant Dark Wizard. At such a level, to be honest, they should indeed be afraid of Dangredo. Practice. Anson shook his hand and left. In the future, all the wizards are basically in a state of sparring. Anyway, there are a lot of white, fresh and healing magic, and there is medical logistics assistance here. Don't worry about missing arms and legs. As long as it doesn't kill magic, it basically won't have any effect. In the castle, Wanda looked at Anson's first-year books. She didn't understand the knowledge above, and she didn't choose magic. Now it's just a matter of learning to have a preparation. Anson, you seem to be worried about something. Pietro, Voldemort? I heard Mr. Spencer tell me. Anson shook his head. Sigh. It's not Voldemort. There are basically not many problems in the wizarding world with Dumbledore. He is worried about the future on this side of the Marvel world. It's useless to think too much. Let's take it one step at a time. The three were chatting when Spencer hurriedly walked in. What's wrong? Young master, something happened. Order the artificial intelligence in the castle to turn on the projection. Yes, you read that right. It is artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence. This thing is like a human hand in Marvel. Not unusual. It's just that it may not be as powerful as everyone thinks. Heroes have it, villains also have it, and there are not heroes who are not villains. This is Stark has an opponent? If he is not mistaken, it should be from a physicist from DAMO. What is rank? Moreover, at this time, Stark should have been more deeply poisoned with palladium. Sure enough, Spencer. Yes, and Stark has been contacting us recently, and I didn't tell you that the young master is training wizards. Young master. Is it? What is his purpose in contacting us? It seemed to be looking for a drug that could cure a disease, and he didn't say specifically, and Mr. Fury was looking for us. Frowning. It's not a coincidence. Recently, he is planning to return to the wizarding world. He is a student, and the second semester is about to start. Although most of the knowledge in the wizarding world has been acquired by him, he also has the magic collection of the Pendra family. But a lot of knowledge can't be learned in books. For example, most of the knowledge held by the professors at Hogwarts cannot be found in their outside world. This is the true wealth of Hogwarts. Not to mention how precious Hogwarts' collection of books has been passed down for thousands of years. Not to be missed. What do you think? Spencer paused and glanced sideways at Wanda and Pietro. Wanda, don't worry about us, Mr. Spencer, even if we want to seek revenge on him. Of course, I have no doubt about your qualities, Miss Wanda. But Stark may have suffered from some kind of illness, young master, and my advice is contact reason. The reason is what the young master said. Once the hero is born, the villain will inevitably follow, and we need a target to withstand fire in front. Mr. Stark is very suitable. Ostentatious, invincible, proud, are all his good reputations. Perfect target. Stark, you know me. Anson, well, it looks like we're going to have to go over. Moreover, this incident should be followed by the arrival of the second Prince of Asgard, and he is also very curious about the people of the Divine Domain. Perhaps, you can get some of his hair. In this case, under the compound decoction, can the person who takes it master the power of Thor? Worth a try. Chapter 056. Are you going? Pietro shook his head directly. I'm not going. I still need to learn combat skills from John and them, and I have no interest in that smelly fart. Wanda thought for a moment. I'll go. This time, only Mindy followed. According to the Big Daddy, magic cannot be easily exposed, and Mindy can handle it if there is anything. Anson will not refuse. Take a special plane to arrive in Nuio. Fortunately, there was no smoke this time. Goo, don't walk around, you bad cat. You'll be pulled away by the bad guys later. Mindy is hard for the cat. In the manor, not long after everyone landed, Stark and the one-eyed man came. Well, they still looked invincible. But under their eyes, Anson saw something different. Stark's 763 seemed dead, but Fury was even more jealous of him. It's hard to find you once. Anson hugged the COO that escaped from Mindy's arms, and Fury teased people a few times and ignored them. feeling that there was no love. "What are you looking for me for?" Fury looked at Stark. "You say it first." "I want to ask, do you have any magic potions here that can heal diseases?" Very crisp. Stark's neck can even be seen with some blue-black stripes climbing up his neck, which is extremely obvious. "Such as poisoning." "What about the cost?" "You really have?" Startled Fury. This time it was his turn to be surprised. Of course he was happy to see it. Anson is mysterious, so is magic, and wants to learn about Anson and magic. I can only keep watching to see how much Anson reveals. Stark's poisoning is actually not difficult to solve, such as stopping the use of Mark armor, such as placing the arc reactor on the armor, instead of the inside of Stark's chest, etc. These can relieve Stark's palladium poisoning symptoms. Unfortunately, the word hero seemed to be full of magic even for Stark. Don't give it up. It is also claimed that he is Iron Man. Iron Man is him, and armor is just a kind of high-tech prosthetics. Comical. Anson smiled and spread his hands. "Why not? Meow." He took out a piece of dragon meat and threw it to Gugu, squatting on the side and chewing slowly. "Mr. Stark, the question now is what can you give me?" "Wait man, what I need here is something that can treat palladium poisoning. Do you understand?" said Stark solemnly. "Anson, I'm pretty clear about that, and of course you know, in order to maximize the benefits, I can't cure you all at once." Spencer said at the right time, "Maybe it will be better to treat in a divided course of treatment. Mr. Stark, you know, this is just a routine capital operation." "Smash your eyes." Mischievous. Stark gritted his teeth. "Good, you geese really are a qualified vampire. Say, what is needed?" "Mr. Stark, you know that the Pendra family has a lot of industries, but energy loss is a headache. How about you help us build some reactors?" Stark's eyes widened. The corners of the mouth twitched. "A fold?" "Do you know how much an arc reactor costs?" "Anyway, it must not be Stark's life, we are sure of that, Mr. Spencer." "Yes, young master. After all, when the people are gone, we can also get this technique. Maybe it's better if we don't treat it." "Stark, I don't find it appropriate to see you together, so let's just say so." Wearing armor and being gassed flew away. Anson wanted to remind him that he hadn't been treated yet. Turned to look at Fury. "Why are you?" "Say in advance, I need to be paid to do things, and their trick of empty gloves White Wolf is not suitable for me." "Fury, we have data to show that Miss Mindy and Big Daddy Damon's previous physical fitness is definitely not so good. How did you manage it?" "For this, it really deserves Fury's attention. At present, the Mika military is still looking for the only extraordinary ability holder Hulk all over the world. After all, Mika's desire for Team America has never stopped. It just so happened that the appearance of the Hulk was born based on this replica serum. But unfortunately, S.H.I.E.L.D. did not have a chance to get a piece of this plan, so its eyes turned to Anson. "To be precise, it is the strength that Mindy and the Big Daddy have played. It also has great strength and other performances, but will not lose his mind like the Hulk. Prove that the methods they use are controllable and more attractive than the Hulk." At the beginning, Anson did not consider the attraction of this method to people in the Marvel Universe. Anson shook his head. "Mr. Fury, don't think about this method. You can't afford to pay the price that satisfies me." "How do you know if you don't try?" "Since it does exist, then we must engage in one to study and study." "I heard that you have a stone in S.H.I.E.L.D. called a Rubik's Cube. Use this." "Pupil constriction." "How do you know?" Even in S.H.I.E.L.D., agents of lower levels would not know, but now Anson said it in one word. Apparently he was well aware. "Deal?" Fury shook his head directly. He felt that this thing had a bigger coming. "Change 1. "Then I don't need it. You have too many things in your hands." "We can pay." "Ha." Anson spread his hands. "Do you think I'm poor at money?" Fury's voice changed. "Then let's change the direction of cooperation. You help me see a weird thing. You should understand what it is, and we let you see how the cosmic cube is." "See something?" "It's Thor's hammer, right?" According to the timeline, this period is the time when Thor was banished to Earth. "Deal." "Well, so happy to agree." "It's okay anyway. It's a vacation." Fu 0.7 Rua left, and when he left, he was full of thoughts about whether he was tricked. Isn't it supposed to do things for yourself? How does it feel like Anson is weaving a net waiting for him to jump in? Wonder, Anson, is that thing important, significant? How to say? In Anson's cognition, the Cosmic Cube and the Infinity Stones should be his only chance to face the core rules of the Marvel Universe. Maybe he could get something out of the Infinity Stones. In his system, magic and wizard mystical side rules are separate, and ordinary people have no magic, so they cannot touch this rule. But on the Infinity Stones, that rule is broken. Because the Infinity Stones themselves have energy, perhaps because of this relationship, ordinary people can also use the power of rules. It's worth looking into. Chapter 057. Healing as ever. Is that the end of it? Stark opened his mouth. The little stick flicked, and it was over. This can fool himself into building a huge number of arc reactors for him for treatment. "Sir, the amount of palladium in your blood is rapidly decreasing. 30%. The current palladium content is 50%. Jarvis's voice came from the headset. Stark couldn't believe it. This really can? It's just not scientific at all. Of course not, Mr. Stark. If you continue to use Mark armor, the toxins in your blood will continue to increase, and I suggest you stop using it. No way, Stark said like a cat that had been trampled on. I almost jumped up. Drink it. A pool of green liquid was handed over in a bowl, to Stark's disgust. But on the one hand, if you drink it, you may be able to live better, and on the other hand, because you may die if you don't drink it, you close your eyes and suffocate. Hiss. Ah, this taste, what the hell is this? 17. Twisting face. Anson, the potion made by the stone has a very powerful effect on detoxification, and this thing may make it easier for you. In fact, it is. Stark's palladium poisoning is also a kind of poisoning, and Borneo stone has a strong detoxification effect. Originally Anson wanted to use ox yellow stone and the like to detoxify, but the material cannot be found here. Sir, the palladium content in your body has decreased by 30%, and the current content percent. The effect is very good. If I come a few more times, doesn't that mean curing me? Anson rolled his eyes. What are you thinking? Mr. Stark will also talk nonsense. If he does not give up the use of Mark armor for a day, or does not place the reactor outside their body, his poisoning will not be alleviated. He was sure of that. These antidote potions and spells only helped him relieve themselves, and it was almost impossible to completely heal them. Mr. Stark, then even if our deal is over, if you want to heal well, it is best to find a new element that can replace palladium yourself. Smile. Making a new element? It's too hard. Even he didn't dare to say that he was guaranteed to do it. A few days later, I heard that Stark's palladium poisoning increased again, and I came to Anson for treatment once, but the effect was not great, at least not as good as the first treatment. So the frustrated Stark fought Rhodes and destroyed his villa. Fury carried a Howard relic box to perfectly connect, and after successfully gaining Stark's favor, Stark never came to Anson for treatment. Not surprisingly. Sir, it's time for us to go. Of course, Mr. Coulson. Shall we take this ride? Although it is a classic sedan, after all, it is a long-distance trip, and he does not think it is a good choice. Coulson said mysteriously, Mr. Anson, you'll know later. When the car arrived outside the city, it began to levitate, which was very magical. This seems to be the levitation technology that Howard once proposed. Moreover, looking at the power of this car, the power is also extremely good, and the technology of S.H.I.E.L.D. is still very good. Coulson said proudly, Mr. Anson, how do you feel? Okay, it seems that you have received Howard's technology well. He stopped talking. Also, most of Howard's legacy was accepted by S.H.I.E.L.D., especially his secret research, and Stark Industries can probably inherit only a small part. For example, the new elements that Howard left for Stark. Did S.H.I.E.L.D. really not study? Anson didn't believe it. It can only be said that Howard firmly believes that others can't study anything, and Stark just happened to inherit the good genes of the Stark family. To understand this operation, S.H.I.E.L.D. is not a good person. Pneumozigo. Mr. Anson, here we are. Get out of the car. Except for the desert is the desert. Faintly see that there are some grasses common in the desert around. A desolation. There was no earthly wonderland scenery that Stark said before he came. In front of the two, it had become a small base around them, with S.H.I.E.L.D. agents stationed there. Coulson gestured to step forward. Let's go. The internal force, the thing that was surrounded was the thing that Anson thought, and a hammer seemed to fall from the sky and smash a huge hole here. Hawkeye, we tried everything we could to move it, but unfortunately it didn't seem to want to move. The fox stepped forward suspiciously. Open the true eye. Hiss. Take a breath of cold air. The huge and complex rules flow on Jonah. The mysterious side rules are stacked one by one, and the deep magic fluctuations are like the sea. This is definitely not what Thor should have. It can only be Odin. Coulson, what's wrong? Loon runes. Coulson frowned. It seemed to be a kind of writing in myths and legends, but there is no R except for some irregular patterns. However, there is still a large part of the difference from the Loon rune in the wizarding world, at least in terms of styling and combination. Perhaps the Loon runes of the wizarding world are not from the same origin as the Loon runes of Marvel, or maybe there is some kind of difference between them. Hawkeye paused and gestured sideways to Coulson. Why is this still bringing a child? This is Mr. Anson, on the mysterious side. Well, very researched. Roll your eyes. Mystic side? Mr. Anson, do you know what this is? Tell me what you think first. 847. We think it's a technological creation, maybe from an alien planet, more that we can't find. It's almost impossible to damage. In this way, they will not be able to judge the year of this hammer. Anson, it's an artifact. Artifact? What is an artifact? The weapon used by the gods, referred to as the artifact. 2. Anson looked up. If I'm not mistaken, there seems to be an agent named Natasha inside your S.H.I.E.L.D. Can you invite her to come? Crunch. Hawkeye grabbed the bow and arrow behind his back, and the arrow had already pinched, almost hitting Anson's face. Fortunately, Coulson hurried to stop it. Joke, if you really want to fight, they may not be Anson's opponents. In Director Fury's security level certification, Anson belongs to the kind of extremely dangerous person, the same level as the Hulk. Don't get excited about Agent Hawkeye. He was invited by the chief. Your rank is not enough to involve this information. Sigh. He took a deep look at Anson. How do you know about Natasha? It's not important. What matters is if she can come. Coulson pulled out his phone. Anson wanted to determine something. Strictly speaking, Black Widow could indeed lift Mjolnir, right? Chapter 058. Anson wanted to make sure something. Strictly speaking, Black Widow could indeed lift Mjolnir. And it's not like Jane, the goddess of thunder, who was lifted up by Thor, but according to Odin's curse, a person with a good heart, or people full of justice. But Black Widow does not belong to this person no matter how she sees it, so in his opinion, everyone's interpretation of Odin's words is wrong. To be precise, it should be a person who is full of justice and can sacrifice for others. He wants Black Widow? Yes, director. I don't know why, but he said that the hammer belonged to the weapon of God, and our mysterious side research experts said that it may be legendary. Mjolnir. Got it. Natasha will rush over and pay attention to collect Anson's information. Understood. When Coulson returned, Anson was still working on Mjolnir. There is no doubt that the hammer is indeed the branch of the World Tree, and now there are still a large number of World Tree branches in the inner space of his Sword of Kings. There will be no mistakes. The hammer body is a high-quality, higher-density material, which faintly contains the energy of lightning and is revealed, which is in line with the characteristics of neutron star nuclei. Moreover, it must have been modified later. Strictly speaking, Mjolnir is an alchemical product. Unfortunately, his research on the runes of Lune was just the beginning, and there were not many in-depth research results. Otherwise, you may be able to bypass the restrictions set by Odin and pick up Mjolnir. By picking up Mjolnir, you can gain Thor's powers. That power should come from Odin. No, it should come from the Azagods. If you guess in this direction, the Azagod clan should still have a secret existence. Otherwise, how to give power to others through a hammer? Unless this power does not exist because Odin exists or not. Simply put, even if the Azagod clan disappeared, it would only go to another dimension. Interesting. Mr. Anson, has something been researched? I need a list of all the outsiders in the town, all the ones you think are suspicious. Well? Hawkeye and Coulson looked at each other. I'll do it. Hawkeye left, and Coulson pointed to the hammer. Is it really a weapon used by God? If nothing else, it's the one you're thinking right now. Coulson frowned. You know what I'm thinking? Magic. It's always magical, isn't it? In a word, it scared Coulson into a cold sweat. Don't worry, I generally don't peek into what other people are thinking, and I don't like to pry into other people's secrets. Coulson exhaled. This skill is really not friendly at all. In the afternoon, Natasha arrived, obviously fast, and the exhaustion visible to the naked eye. Despite the perfect concealment, Anson saw a hint of reluctance in her eyes. What do I need to do? Go grab it, try to lift it, pay attention, you need to be extremely relaxed and full of goodness and justice. Natasha turned to look at Anson. She had read Anson's message and knew something. Are you sure? Anson shrugged. Okay. Anson even took a few steps back, but this retreat made everyone nervous a lot, thinking that there would be some danger. Hawkeye couldn't help but exclaim, Natasha, or forget it. No. Coulson simply refused. You know, what does this thing represent if it is determined to be really a weapon of God? Natasha, needless to say, I'll try. After walking to the hammer and taking a deep breath, he grabbed it sharply. Motionless. Hey, just now, when Black Widow caught it, Anson clearly saw a Lune rune on the Mjolnir move. Authentication. Are you sure you carried it according to my words? Natasha disagreed. I'm sure, but it seems heavy. Look at the actual size of the neutron star itself. But whether it is a large or small Anson, you can determine one thing. Thor definitely can't lift. It's just that the alchemy method above cancels out this weight. In this way, not only can it be grasped by being pure and sacrificial for others, there seems to be something here. After all, Hela can also be lifted. Of course, she belongs to the Azar race, which cannot be a representative. And what about Team America? Well, Odin, this old yin is not looking at this, is he? Meanwhile, at the end of the rainbow bridge of the Azagod clan, a guy with white eyes smiled. Mr. Anson, the information you want. Flipping through the data until he clicked on a blonde man and stopped. Go and bring him. Just tell him the hammer is here and he will come with you. Natasha looked confused. Why did she hurry up? Little friend, tell the Lund family what this is. People are very curious. Whoops. It's almost yin and yang weird. There was a shiver. I said old aunt, I'm only 11 years old. Of course, I'll be 12 years old. Ha ha ha. Hawkeye smiled blankly on the side, and Natasha glared over. You seem to know me. Natasha said seriously. She was sure that the word old might simply mean that she simply looked older than Anson. But here at Anson, she makes it clear that Anson is talking about her age. It seems the same, but it is different. Anson said indifferently, long life does not make you feel redeemed, Black Widows. It is clear that you are suffering every day. Click. A small pistol was pointed at Anson. Calm down, Natasha. Hawkeye hurried to stop. Draw your wand. I advise you to put down your toys, or you'll regret it. Natasha pouted, shrugged her shoulders and withdrew her weapon. It's not fun at all. I'm leaving, and there are still tasks. Hawkeye said apologetically. Sorry, she was not like this in the past. But what do you mean by what you said? How? One red face and one white face. My hammer, where are you? A voice full of crazy lines came from far and near, and the two of them looked speechless. What the heck? Thor is not only crazy, but also crazy. After seeing Jonah, it is like you have come to the alley of the city village and see the person standing waiting for you in the cold wind. I want to warm up and excited. Mjolnir, do you know how much I miss you? I can't sleep well in the past few days. People have lost several pounds. Let's get into my father's arms. Reach out and grab Mjolnir. Syllable. Well, why didn't you move the quiet garden? Let go. Grasp again. Still no response. How did your own power disappear? No. Snow, flowers, drift, drift. Chapter 059. Hawkeye covered his black lines. He's a fool, right? He's the guy I'm looking for, but maybe he's a real fool too. Anson agrees with this. Who in a normal person would have their own sound effects? Walking over, the little hand patted Thor's shoulder. And then I don't know where to take out a pair of scissors. Click, click. Well, Thor was stunned with tears in his eyes. What are you doing? Anson cut Thor's hair again. Cut your hair. You're busy with yours. I'm busy with mine. Go on. Maybe you cry again and it responds to you. Click. Another strand of blonde hair was cut. Thor couldn't hold back any longer, and his hands were about to come up and grab Anson's shoulders to throw him out. Once, well, not moving. Two exertions. Anson was like taking root on the ground, just not moving as hard as he could. No way. No. My power. Click. Enough midgets to dare to offend Thor's hair. I convict you. Snap. A crisp sound appeared. Thor flipped to the side. One blow to the stunned hiss. Hawkeye and Coulson, who were watching from the side, both felt pain. It's brutal. Anson carried the scissors over and collapsed on Thor to continue cutting, letting him struggle without stopping. Maybe I didn't dare to provoke you when you had divine power, but now, 317, you're just a hello cat. One hole in the east, one hole in the west. Thor's hair was cut bald directly. 3 times 5 divided by 2. The speed is so fast that Coulson didn't react. When the reaction comes, what Anson is plotting must be a good thing, and he wants to be stronger, but there is no more. Oh Thor, I'm bald. Anson patted him on the shoulder. Don't panic, big men are afraid of something. It will grow in a few months. You get out. I'm also for your own good. You see how hot it is here, and you have too much hair that is not conducive to heat dissipation. Midgedians, you will regret it. Let you see what is called invincible. Thor, turn over, made a fight-ready stance, reaching out and aiming at Anson's head. Who expected? He was grabbed by Anson just halfway through. Jerk it tug. The person was thrown directly into the air, and if Anson let go now, he would definitely be thrown out. Famous scene, mysterious, God smashing of the ground. Boom. It wasn't until a large hole formed in the ground that Anson clapped his hands and let go of Thor. The needle does not poke. Anson, is he all right? Don't worry, people are gods. Is he really a god? Thor, because something happened in his family, he was banished to Earth for training, waiting for him to recover his strength. You can understand that the son of the landlord's family competes for family property and so on. Yes, got it. Only, is it really good for Anson to offend people like this? Anson said innocently, attention, you people from S.H.I.E.L.D. have beaten people, and when the time comes, people will find you to settle accounts when they recover their divine power. Think of being remembered by a god. Hiss. Coulson was anxious. No, Anson, isn't this your call? Of course not, it was you S.H.I.E.L.D. who fought it. At this time, Thor rolled over with indignation in frustration. Well, sure enough, I'd like to call you the hardest midgets. I remember you. Coulson. Hawkeye. Hawkeye whispered. Or do we really beat him? Thor decisively reached out and refused. Don't. I'm kidding, you know. I've always been a kind and friendly god. So what? Where's their door? Anson, let you go? No. What else do you want to do? Just beat me, cut my hair. You really think I eat dry food? Don't worry. Do you want to regain your strength? Thor Fox wondered. You have a way? This is the power that my father has withdrawn, and I don't think you can do it, although you Midgedians have some ability. Anyway, I have a way. The question is, what can you pay me? Thor snorted as he patted his chest. BHFC. Just say that Thor will satisfy you. There is a rich posture. Anson smiled. Sure enough, God is the best fool. Get along. Why don't you let me transcribe the Asgard collection? I have a headache when I see it. I can give you a Pegasus or a sword. Trust me, it's definitely beyond your imagination. No, I'm going to copy books. Okay. Quite reluctant, perhaps Thor felt that Anson had suffered a loss. Somewhere in Asgard, the corners of Gyuyi's mouth tugged, and he turned his head. Under Odin's crown, it's just a child's play. Odin sighed, and even more so with the Queen of Gods beside him. Is this the man you call outside of fate? Anyway, fate is already preordained, Even if it doesn't happen, a newly born dimensional demon god is good for little Thor. Of course, this is the future for the kids. Night. Fury remotely watched all of today's surveillance. Natasha, have you noticed that when he grabbed that god and hit the ground, he seemed to deliberately choose some places? You see here. The picture is enlarged. A less obvious footprint loomed over the ground. The place where Mjolnir is located is already low, and people walking around in the wet will leave a lot of footprints, and you can't find it if you don't pay attention to it. Hiss. Is there another invisible person in this place? Well, it seems that our Mr. Anson knows the existence of this person, and deliberately uses Thor to beat, which is very bad. Fury squinted at the one-eyed. Seal all the data and tell Coulson to secretly evacuate the people of that town. What do you mean? Do you think that the stupid son of the landlord's family will fight for the family property and be as simple as banishment? The other one will come and kill him? Undoubtedly. This is the fastest and the most direct way to secure one's place in the fight for family property. I'll just go and inform Coulson. In the cell, the monitoring was not abnormal. But Thor saw his brother suddenly appear. Loki. Anson cast the illusion charm and stood aside. He could see Loki, and now Loki couldn't see him. During the day, he felt an abnormal magic fluctuation on the side, watching Thor being beaten by himself. It's really this. In other words, Loki's bloodline is a frost giant. Is it similar to the giants in the wizarding world? Well, it's worth collecting it later. Brother, where's your hair? Thor's eyes were evasive and sad. Woo, don't mention it. I met a monster and forcibly cut my hair. Woo woo. Really, smelling sad, watching tears. Ha ha ha. Chapter 060. Your two brothers are in the period, but then again, Loki, the first mage of the 9 realms, does seem to have some moisture. Anson's illusion charm is not perfect. Even if he pays a little attention now, I'm afraid he will find Anson standing here, but, unfortunately, Loki wants to spoof Sol too much to be under Odin, to prove himself. I didn't even think about whether there was anyone else in this house. Of course, he is confident. The other side. Loki was still frowning a little when he came here incognito, and there was a child standing on the platform above, and today was where he was carrying Thor to him. It was also he who saw this little monster bear Thor's hair with his own eyes. Terror. Go straight to Mjolnir and stretch out your hand. Belch. Motionless. Changed to 2 hands to exert force together. The body even squatted down to exert force, but Mjolnir's hammer still did not move. Shrugging his shoulders and just about to leave. Don't try again? Loki turned his head and Anson was looking at him. No need to look. I'm talking to you. Loki was surprised to wear a golden antler helmet that flipped back. Are you? How did you find me? Anson, you're standing here. Why can't I see you? When did Midgard also have mages? And I heard that Karmitage is a group of backward and primitive mages. You? Of course not. Loki took a step back. So you're looking for me? Anson turned to the staircase up the platform and said, how about cooperation? The Loki of Mjolnir below dissipated, and the position of the staircase entrance revealed Loki's figure. His brows furrowed. This also knows. Anson never underestimated Loki, known as the god of teasing. Admittedly, he can't do anything. Loki, I thank you. But if Loki doesn't just use a knife to stab people, maybe the deterrent won't be just what he sees. You surprised me a little, but I am the son of Odin, the crown prince of Asgard, and a great god. In what capacity do you talk to me? Stand beside Anson, his head squinting. What identity? Anson shook his head and said to himself, Odin will eventually wake up when he enters Odin's sleep. If you want to gain control of Asgard from Thor, Thor died too casually. Do you think that with Odin's wisdom and the wisdom of the Queen of Gods, will he find anything? Can you help me? Obviously. Sorry, there are enough reasons and interests in my relationship with Thor. But what about you? Anson smiled and said, this is the deal between us. I will help you deal with Thor, and you need to give me all the magic books of Asgard. Transcribed. How? Loki looked deeply at Anson. Asgard has conquered the 9 realms, plundered an unknown amount of valuable knowledge, wealth, and things that have been lost in other dimensions still exist in Asgard's treasure room. Today, despite the victory, the past has been carved by countless beautiful words. The benefits are real. The question is, how does this person know? Master, has anyone ever told you that you are cursed if you try to plot the wealth of God? Zheng. A small knife pierced Anson's back, but it was resisted by a layer of visible fluctuations, and Loki was also divided into 2 people at this time. If you don't look at the stunned look on his face, he should be proud. This trick has been tried and tried. After all, who has made his assassin skills proficient? It's a pity that this time he used the wrong object. Anson turned his head and slammed his right hand over. Wow! After receiving a heavy blow to his abdomen, he couldn't help but gag from the pain, and just when he wanted to cast his doppelganger, Anson had already pulled out his dragon heartstring wand. Unification, stone, chemistry. Obscure. Loki, who was about to leave, just paused, and Anson frowned. Demon resistance? He recognized that the pure magical energy blow would be partially offset by the magic resistance, and this had been established when he first dealt with the trolls. Loki is understandably a frost giant, so all petrified, all petrochemical, all petrochemical, several times in a row, until Loki made up for a quick confinement when his figure was stunned. Countless vines stretched out of thin air from the ground to wrap Loki, entangled so that he could not move. A pick of the wand, the image of Loki floating in the air facing his head and feet. I think I proved my strength. Loki blushed. Of course, I trade with you. Putting it down, Loki patted the ashes on his body and no longer dared to underestimate the young Anson in front of him. What do you want to do? Watching Anson grab his arm, Loki was very reluctant. Anson, it's just a little insurance. You can understand that this is a restricted type of magic. If you can't help me get Asgard's knowledge by then, you will die. But it takes a witness, I think. Hall, the house elf, appeared from the air in a twist, and the gentleman bowed down to salute. Young master. Well, you come to witness it for us. Loki couldn't help but want to pull back. But Anson had already engraved the rules belonging to the dragon on his soul. The power is not lost to him. Loki, Odinson, will you give Anson all of his Asgard collection during this time after Anson helps? As soon as Anson pushed hard, Loki screamed in pain. Reluctantly, he said, I do. Very good, I wish us a happy cooperation. Princess Loki ground. Fuck, I'm a man, you should call me your highness. Leng snorted and turned his head and left. Anson couldn't help but prompt, by the way, Princess Loki, I forgot to say that everyone who has signed an unbreakable oath must fulfill the contract, and in addition, if you don't fulfill the contract, you will really die. In the dark, Rainbow Bridge brought Loki back. Hall couldn't help but look up. Young master, this guy has a giant stench on him, and Hall doesn't like it. Anson's eyes lit up. Huh? But it doesn't matter. Next, Thor screamed like a dead father, and Coulson and others could only let him go when they saw that they couldn't find anything. After all, this was still a god in Anson's mouth, or a great prince of an alien civilization. There is only so much they can do. Magic fluctuations, it seems, point to the essence of magic, Frigga said behind her. The expression was slightly surprised. Odin's one-eyed light was dancing, and he understood why Koichi would tell him that this person was very special, not only people, but also magic. It seems that he is not borrowing the power of the demon god. Gyu-Yi raised the teapot. Of course, he is a dimensional demon god himself, but he himself doesn't seem to realize this. Chapter 061. The deal with Loki was a risky move. Anson has reason to believe that Loki has some other way to escape the constraints of their unbreakable oath, or even ignore it, although this is unlikely. But that's not the core of the problem. It's that Loki seems to be using him intentionally. Want to get? Loki is here on Earth again. Become kinder. Now Odin has entered Odin's sleep, and I, Loki, the incoming king of Asgard, are in control. Loki looked at Anson, puzzled. You'll get everything you want, but you need to do something for me. What? The arrival of any king will not be peaceful, especially Asgard. My dear brother messed something up and I need help. What about the pay? Loki smacked his tongue. To be honest, I kind of like you. Shamelessness may be engraved on your tombstone. The voice changed. In addition to getting the Asgardian collection, you can also choose a treasure from the Asgard treasury. How about deal? Anson had no reason to refuse, although Loki thinks he is in control now, even in order to get Odin to see him differently. He continues to cooperate with the frost giant Laufey in order to trick Laufey into attacking Odin, who is in Odin's sleep, as long as he can kill Laufey at a critical moment. Attack Thor again, which is to restrict Thor from being trapped on Earth. At that time, he will have a great credit for saving Odin, and perhaps really be able to claim their throne of Asgard. Unfortunately, all this is too idealistic, too petty. Of course, he did this series of things just to know his identity as a frost giant. Imagine that a person who grew up in Asgard is still a person who is raised as an heir to the throne, and knows that he is the one written in the history books of Asgard. Filthy frost giant. Hiss. How disheartened was Loki. Say he is for the throne, but more like a child's temper tantrum. In order to take revenge on Odin for hiding everything from him, in order to erase his own origin as a frost giant, he is ashamed of this identity and desperately wants to abandon it, even by destroying Jotunheim. Hey, I'm very well. Hey Idama, pick us up. Airplanes. A colorful light quickly formed from the air and enveloped the two, and Anson only felt a huge force pulling him off the earth. Disappeared. Unlike phantom transfiguration is like dispersing the body into atomic states for teleportation, and then reorganizing after reaching its destination. So there will be splitting phenomena, which is somewhat dangerous. But the Rainbow Bridge is more like a means of technology and magic. People do not move, only the energy of the Rainbow Bridge itself. More like a warp engine. Colorful. Anson looked at the scene outside the light curtain curiously, perhaps because their speed was too fast to see anything outside. Loki turned his head above to look down. I advise you not to reach out, otherwise I can't save you. Anson withdrew his hand. At Ragnarok, the two brothers were beaten out of the Rainbow Bridge by Hela, where they were exiled to outer space, fell into the hands of Gaut and Zun, and were used as gladiators. Be born. Anson looked at everything here curiously, jumping magic fluctuations, as if swimming in an ocean of magic. Astound. If a child grows up in such an environment, even if he has no other abilities, his physical fitness will be several times that of Earthlings, even higher. Moreover, Asgard was artificially created, and this place seems to be replicated. Magical rules and technological creations visible all around. Anson, the things on the technology side, don't know much about it, but the rules on the magic side he saw a real thing, Merlin's left kidney. Simply so. Loki chuckled. How breathtaking. Ahem. As the two spoke, the man standing inside the end of the rainbow bridge coughed twice. It was Heidama, and legend has it that his eyes could see every place where the 9 realms were. Swollen. Slightly exaggerated, but definitely able to see most of the place. Young Mage Midget, welcome to Asgard. Heidama nodded. Anson performed a wizarding salute. It is a pleasure to meet you, Your Excellency Heidama. Your loyalty is amazing. Loki, enough, let's go. Anson, dressed in wizarding robes, followed Loki with a world wand in hand, and what he saw across the rainbow bridge was a huge tall wall. Some white bones are faintly visible. It's huge. Anson stopped ahead. Loki frowned. Our deal is just to give you the collection of books in Asgard. Damn it, I'm not interested in introducing you to Asgard. Wall of Size? You know? Loki was surprised again. Legend has it that the Wall of Size is made of the bones of giants, and any giant who approaches the Wall of Size will be suppressed. Not knowing whether it is true or not, follow the line of sight. The entire Wall of Size could not be seen at a glance. How many giants had to be killed to build such a wall? Anson, you say, is there any of your kindred here? What do you mean? Don't you know? Scold. The Eternal Spear pestle was a few centimeters away in front of Anson, and Anson could even feel the sharpness and powerful magic fluctuations brought by the Eternal Spear. This is an energy weapon. There's no denying that it's really powerful, but it depends on who is using it. Anson stretched out his hand and pulled the tip of the Eternal Spear. You don't have to do something that doesn't make sense. You can feel it. Just now, Loki really wanted to kill Anson here, but suddenly there was a sharp pain all over his body, and this sharp pain only eased when his killing intent for Anson dissipated and weakened. Wonderful magic. I underestimate you. Anson smiled. So, our cooperation should be worth your expectations. Loki, so, you can't hurt me either? Theoretically, yes. Unbreakable 5.8 Oath is a magic developed on the basis of the Blood Oath, which will act directly on your and my souls and cannot be broken. Theoretically? Loki scoffed. He didn't believe that Anson, who had mastered this magic, would not be exempt from the harm caused by this magic. Fearful things were a little out of his control. Suddenly, an Asgardian soldier appeared. The Queen of God pleases. Queen of Gods? Loki frowned. What's the matter with the Queen Mother looking for us? I don't know. Interesting. Anson felt that everyone seemed to be acting with Loki, and the Queen of God knew the news of his arrival so quickly. It was nothing more than Odin telling her, or Heidam telling her. Whatever it wasn't what Loki wanted to see. Chapter 062. Following the soldiers, there were not many people in Asgard, but each one is powerful, especially the children. Anson thought they would be very talented if they were to learn magic. The magical creations that can be seen everywhere forge it through alchemical means. Rich, really rich. Compare yourself again, maid. He's a poor man. In another golden bedroom, Anson saw the god of Asgard, Frigga. This female mage from the Warner god clan looked quite kind. Hello, Your Excellency Mage from Midgard. Welcome to Asgard. After seeing God, I don't know. Frigga smiled and said, it's okay, I'm just curious about you. It seems that my son has found a friend. Loki rolled his eyes. Anson turned his gaze to the old man lying on a cloud bed on one side. Odin. There was a thick accumulation of divine power suspended on the bed. Yes, Asgard called it, but in Anson's eyes, it was undoubtedly magic. Heck, this level of magic fluctuation he had never seen in Dunbrido. According to this level of magic calculation, maybe any flat-pushed Dunbrido will fall 17 and wait for death on the ground, right? Squint. This is the difference in the level of life. Frigga, so, you came to study in Asgard. I prefer to call it trading. Knowledge can bring people everything, not only wisdom, but also friendship. What does Master Anson think? Of course, the Queen of God. I heard that the Queen of God is very accomplished in this area. Frigga was quite self-satisfied when she heard this. Yes, this gentleman next to you, who is known as the first mage of the 9 realms, was taught by me, although he likes to play pranks. Queen Mother. Loki wasn't happy. Frigga smiled gently, her eyes full of affection, but unfortunately, Loki seemed to be used to its appearance and did not notice it. Poor parents too. Anson moved. I wonder if the Queen of God can guide me somewhat. I don't know what Master Anson wants to learn, but even I haven't learned everything about Asgard. Loon runes. As soon as these words came out, Frigga's face was a little stunned. Also, anyone who learns mysterious abilities basically has to deal with a loon rune, because it is their closest magical language to the essence of magic. At the same time, it also represents power and mystery. Learning it will allow people on the mysterious side to go one step further, and even master magic that they can't master, breaking the ground and turning decay into magic. For the Lune Rune, I think it's best for Mage Anson to learn it himself. It's mysterious, but I recommend my son, the first mage of the 9 realms, pulling Loki with one hand. Loki blushed in embarrassment. It was still a shame to be called the first mage of the 9 realms by his mother. After all, this is what he bragged about himself outside. I can't count it. In fact, he was not even a match for this god queen. So, how did the queen of god die in the future? After all, Odin is also dead. Anson can only guess that you can't kill a person who is already dead. Maybe people are the same as Gyuyi. They went on vacation, and they are not really dead. As for why so sure, rank, where does the power of the Asgardian Protoss come from? Here is a plot. When the Rainbow Bridge ceased to exist when Asgard was destroyed in their future, why could Heidam continue to use the power of the Rainbow Bridge? Similarly, why can Thor's axe still use the power of the Rainbow Bridge in the future? Asgard is a product of the technology side, but there are definitely not too many. More of them have local characteristics of the mysterious side ability. Why is the Valkyrie Sif so obsessed with dying in battle and returning to the temple? Maybe Asgard has a dimension in his hands. Anyway, the dimension is not unusual in Marvel. Of course, it is also certain that once Asgard dies, it may not be easy to come out. Library. A large number of books were displayed here, and Loki asked someone to bring Anson their books he wanted. Most about the runes of Lune. The automatic sketching quill is sliding, and Anson is reading a little bit with a book in hand. Very esoteric. At present, he is not very easy to read, especially since he finds that the Lune runes in Asgard are different from the Lune runes he has come into contact with in the wizarding world. There is a big difference. Among them, it is necessary for Anson himself to make a little dialectic about what is useful to him. Do you have something to say to me? Loki carried the Eternal Spear to cast an enchantment, and Anson put down the book. Loki composed his face. There may be enemies attacking Asgard in a few days. I hope you can keep my mother safe. You can arrange a large number of guards to watch her. Although the Queen of Gods is not good at fighting, I think she is not someone who can hurt her. No, it can't be like this. Is it because you have a guard that the enemy does not dare to move? Said Anson. Loki took a breath. Looks like I'm right. Are you sure that these ideas of yours will get you everything you want? You know what? Loki suddenly became angry, like a cat who had been. What do you mean I deserve it? Why should someone give it to you? Loki was silent. Yes, why should others give themselves? He was merely raised, and it is even possible that Odin used him against Laufey. After all, he is Laufey's heir, at least not Asgardian. Now he grew up in Asgard. The subversion of his identity once made him feel ashamed of his identity as a frost giant, and on the one hand, he was irritated by Asgard's identity. What should he do? 243. Making that reckless brother king? He can do better than Sol, definitely. To be honest, if you do this, I'm afraid even Asgard's identity will be lost. He understood what Anson meant. At that time, if it is not successful, the frost giant will definitely be hostile to him, even if he does not care. Another, the Asgardians probably won't like a two-headed jumper, and the divine domain people, synonymous with bravery, disdain to be with such a person. Even so, there will be no more status for him in the god domain. Anson looked at the tangled Loki and said indifferently, I help you protect your queen mother, you give me the icebox, and the frost giants will not come to Asgard's trouble. You want it? Loki looked deeply at Anson. In fact, it's really good, isn't it? No, you can't use it without the frost giant's bloodline. Yes. Anyway, he saw some interesting things in the collection of Asgard, such as Jotunheim, the dimension where the frost giant is located. For example, Muspelheim, also called Belheim, is the land of flame giants. Similarly, on the one hand, there is a treasure of the icebox that can freeze a planet, and on the other hand, there is an eternal fire, which can create a treasure of the flame realm. It's amazing. How can it be so similar? Chapter 063. Anson does not believe in coincidences, and all coincidences are only man-made in the end. The other side. Are you sure you need to do this? Loki was expressionless. He has to die. As a deal, I can help you. Anson spat out the letter like a viper, waiting for Loki to enter the range of his viper's attack. It seems that you have some power in Midgard, so to speak. Forget it. Thor is a person from the divine domain, and you mortals are not his opponents. But since we have traded, it is better to help me protect my mother. Loki pointed at him. I count you as completing the deal between us. Anson spread out his hands. I'm afraid, it's not that simple. He had no way to contact Spencer and the others on Earth, and in the spirit of the contract, he had already arranged it when he came to Asgard. At this moment, Loki has urged the destroyer Rama to land in the town where Thor is. He has even fought with the 4 warriors under Thor. Sif jumped to the back of the destroyer and stabbed a spear, piercing it. I thought that the destroyer would be destroyed in this way, but they underestimated this armor. This is what Odin created to deal with the gods. How can these little army of them deal with it? Even if Thor smashed a few hammers in the original play, there may be moisture in it. Sure enough, Seeing the 4 warriors being crushed by the destroyer, Thor had to stand up and try to trade his own life for the end of everything. Bang! Slapped to death. Loki was in a trance. That's the end of it? Anson, how about making it up again? What do you mean? You think Thor is that easy to die? The destroyer, who was about to leave, turned and walked to Thor's side, ignoring the shouts of the others, and almost fell with a foot raised high. Bang! Thunder and lightning. Loki squinted. Sure enough, even now he has an obscure sense of mastering the destroyer through the eternal spear. And only one person can do all this. Odin. Swish. The destroyer's armor giant foot was just about to fall, and a hammer quickly flew into the sky in the distance, and a hammer fell into the hands of Thor, who should have died. While Saul, ha ha ha, I know, Chef laughed. Anson looked sideways at Loki, his disappointment showing. The only chance for these 3 princesses is gone. In fact, he really wanted to see Loki take control of Asgard, at least not too lonely in the future. I thought it was time for me to go and get paid. Loki, of course. How about we make another deal? Well, what do you mean? Loki laughed miserably. His return is inevitable. I will also fail. My end may not be too good. In order to prepare for the future, the alliance. What do I get? Laughed Anson. Very good. What do you want? What about part of the eternal flame? Deal. Anyway, the cub solution is not distressed. Those things are all collected by Odin in their treasure house. What does it have to do with him? Come to the treasury. Most of the scenes that seem to Anson are good things. Infinity Gauntlet, various armors, all kinds of mysterious side mage items. Until the end, a blue box was placed on the table. The box of ice. Anson stepped forward, opened the space of the king's sword and took it directly in, and then took away part of it by the furnace of the eternal flame. In this way, ice and fire are in his hands. The gains this time were huge. Before leaving, Loki couldn't help but speak. I'm curious. I'm afraid you'll be hostile to Asgard after you do this, and I don't believe you'll be Odin's opponent. Anson raised his eyebrows. Strong people never complain about the environment. You're a strong man. So who is the weakling? No, you misunderstood me. I mean the weak are Asgard. It's too old. It's too old. It's too weak. If you want to calculate Asgard, it is not difficult because it has too many enemies, but doing so will not do Anson much substantial good. The bedroom where the Queen of God and Odin are. Anson cast the illusion charm and stood here waiting. Under the real eye, Odin has all kinds of magic rules circulating, such as his one-eyed eye. Odin's one-eyed eye is said to have been lost by hanging himself upside down on the world tree in order to gain power, and it is not known whether it is true or not. But it certainly wasn't Laufey who was blind, and that's impossible. Has Asgard always been strong? Not. At least thousands of years ago, Odin's previous generation was not so strong, and it was from Odin's generation that strong people appeared on a large scale. Until the horizontal pressure of the 9 realms. There must be a lot of secrets here, such as how did Asgard become stronger? Wait a minute. Everything, I'm afraid, is clear only to Odin. It's a pity that one of the 3 heirs of the family is less reliable than the other. Bang bang. The dull sound of footsteps approached from a distance, and Anson could hear the sound of their guard outside the door falling to the ground, albeit slightly. The queen paused, stroked Odin, turned to the bed, and pulled out a sword. Love. Saw the visitor. Frigga couldn't help but shout. It's been a long time since I saw Frigga. You're as good as before. Gee, Odin can't do it. I heard that he can still feel everything in the outside world after entering Odin's sleep. Laufey was proud. The excitement of being able to kill Odin and restore Jotunheim's glory was addictive. Frigga frowned. You will cause war by doing this. I hope you will seriously consider it. Guard, stop shouting. The guards outside don't seem to be doing their duty today. As soon as the words fell, Laufey jumped to Frigga with a sharp step, and the huge blue palm fanned over like a huge door panel. It collided with the sword in Frigga's hand. Qian Wang Zhao. While the huge force broke the sword in Frigga's hand and smashed it on her again. Wow! A mouthful of blood sprayed out. Anson frowned. He knew why Loki liked to take a knife to Karen. It was true that people who taught him couldn't do it. You are a mage. What sword do you hold? He also wanted to see what Frigga's mysterious side ability looked like. Disturbing. Not professional at all. Feel it again. Loki is already here. After looking at Odin, and then at the god lying on the ground vomiting blood, Laufey couldn't help but make the villain's last mouth, and even walked to Odin's side. Shot or watch? Fainted in the toilet. Syllable. The light hit Frigga directly, and something happened to Anson's surprise. How come? Just faint. Even Loki has a certain amount of magic resistance. Why Frigga, the Queen of Gods, does not have it? Is it physique? Chapter 064. Oh? Who got this rescuer? Laufey looked at Anson, who appeared from the air, interestingly, holding an ice pick formed by his ability. The eyes are playful, as if looking at his prey. Anson didn't like such a look. Holding the world wand with a calm face. Loki is trying to deal with him with the help of Laufey's hands. Except for your weapons. A sudden attack without warning. Dink clang. The ice pick in Laufey's hand seemed to be pulled away from his hand by a force, and Laufey didn't even react. Quite surprised. However, In the next second, an ice pick condensed in his hand again. "How many do you want?" Anson suddenly smiled and stretched out his hand. "Your Excellency Laufey, don't you want to kill Odin?" This time it was Laufey's turn to be surprised. "You seem to be somewhat similar to the magic used by the Warner Protoss. You're a mage." "Of course not. It's just a deal, like your deal with that person." "Yes, he got it." This scene changed so quickly, not to mention that Laufey did not react, and even Loki, who was hiding in the shadows, did not expect Anson to be so shameless. "What about the elegance of your mage?" Anson said that he is not familiar with you. Anson prompted, "My transaction is to ensure the safety of the Empress of God, and I have no obligations to do anything else, Your Excellency." Very interesting. 177, I like you as a person, bad completely. "Thanks for the compliment." A few steps to Odin's side. The ice pick became even bigger as Laufey walked, and if it plunged into Odin's body, it might not be as simple as a hole. Scold. The cold light on the ice pick reflected the golden glow in the hall, appearing holy. Rumble. Laufey was suddenly knocked to the ground by a light, and Loki walked in expressionlessly and glanced at Anson. Anson smiled and did not speak. "Can you eat me?" "Are you?" Laufey struggled to get to her feet. Loki held the eternal spear at his head, and further he was able to pierce Laufey. Shortness of breath. "You can't get rid of your identity, and if you kill me, you won't have any bit of glory to inherit." Loki, "Huh. Yes, I am not destined to receive glory, but I can wash away my shame." "Can it change?" Loki shook his head deeply. Laufey spread out his hands. "We can completely open up another world, believe me, then you will get everything you want." Loki turned to look at Anson. "Raise your wand and say it to God." Recovery. The Queen of God struggled between her eyebrows. "Big, waiting to wake up." Boom. Laufey died, in the witness of the Queen of God. "Loki, oh my child, you saved your father. He just showed up here." The Queen of God spoke in a panic. Loki's heart was empty. "It seems there is no sense of accomplishment. Instead, I feel like I've lost a lot." "Queen Mother, there may be more frost giants in the God domain. I have to deal with it first." "Go ahead." Frigga sighed. Loki left, and Frigga turned to the side. "So Mage Anson of Midgard, all these changes are what you would like to see? Where is the flustered Queen of God?" Anson squinted. Sure enough, was it the old Yinbi? "So, Odin really doesn't have much of a problem?" "Reveal your figure." "Queen God, it's just a deal. I do guarantee your safety, don't I? And how Loki should choose is his decision. No one forces it." "Mess around." Odin, who should have been sleeping, suddenly burst out, and didn't even care about Anson and Frigga, and flew straight out. "What's wrong?" froze Frigga. Odin sleeps in the hope of combing through the surge of power in his body in this way, so as not to let the power damage Odin himself. But the time has not come. "Anson, what if Loki wants to destroy Jotunheim?" "No, it's absolutely impossible. He doesn't have such abilities." "Is it the Rainbow Bridge?" The Queen of God suddenly reacted. "Of course, Asgard's Rainbow Bridge is not only a teleportation of people, it is itself a strike technique that spans space and galaxies. Moreover, Loki has a switch in his hand, and the Eternal Spear except for Heimdall can basically control most of Asgard's alchemical products. For manipulating the Rainbow Bridge." Frigga paused and looked unbearable. "Even if Jotunheim is destroyed, he cannot change the fact that he is a frost giant." Obviously he didn't realize it. "Queen God, but I have a question for me." "What?" "Why, you mages like melee combat so much." The Queen turned to look at Anson. "What does this mean?" At the same time, Earth. "Heimdall, I need you to take us back immediately." "Heimdall?" shouted Thor a few times. According to Heimdall's ability, they can definitely be heard and seen, but why not open their Rainbow Bridge? So, Saul decided that something must have happened to Asgard. More anxious, Spencer came outside. "Mr. Thor, who are you?" "The young master said that you may not be able to go back in a short time, and I hope you can stay on Earth as a guest." Very polite. Thor didn't think it was polite and was angry. "You want to imprison me, bully Atrium? What do you want to do?" Mindy, Damon, John, and even the security personnel in more than a dozen castles who were inscribed with magic rules instantly pounced on the four warriors standing on the side. Sudden changes. Where can the four warriors, who were already injured by the destroyer, react? They were directly caught, but they also found that their strength could not break free from their shackles of the Atrium people. Odin's Cunner. "Oh, how is this possible?" Spencer stood in front and raised his hand to signal Thor to stop. "Your Excellency Thor, you don't want your friends to be killed here, do you?" "You, too, and, think, do, what?" Word by word, Thor was obviously already angry. "Jane, hey, what the hell are you trying to do?" Spencer ignored her. According to the young master, it had nothing to do with anyone and so on. "Your Excellency Sol has not already seen it. We are keeping you as guests. I hope you will like it." "Oh yes." The young master also said that if you do anything, you will kill them directly, and said sincerely, "As mortals, we think it is very interesting for several gods to accompany their burial. Should your Excellency Thor consider it?" "Who is your young master?" Anson, Mr. Pendra." "It's him?" Thor remembered that little pervert, just like these Atrium people, was amazingly powerful. The picture goes back to Asgard. The Rainbow Bridge bombarded Jotunheim, and the planet where the frost giant was located was hit, and the planet faintly cracked from the point where the energy light pillar landed. A large area of frost giants escapes in energy waves and dies. Loki chattered maniacally. Helpless, unwilling, disappointed. Loki, what did you do? Odin flew down not far away. Loki turned back and trembled when he heard this. Father, I did it. I can do it. I'm no worse than Thor. Chapter 065. No Loki, it's not too late yet. Stop it. Loki froze and laughed at himself. There's no chance. Odin skimmed Loki to see the Rainbow Bridge control terminal behind him. The Eternal Spear is inserted above, and even a large amount of energy is being pumped from the land of Asgard. The energy that forms destruction strikes across space into the land of the frost giants. Death, destruction. Loki locked the Rainbow Bridge through the Eternal Spear, which is equivalent to saying that their Rainbow Bridge will not stop until it destroys Jotunheim. It wasn't what he wanted. Odin thought if he wanted to destroy any place in the 9 realms, he had the ability to do it in the early years. But he didn't. It is undeniable that he has destroyed many lives and souls in order to fight for hegemony. But there is absolutely no Loki's idea at the moment. Destroying all the frost giants means that he is not a frost giant. It's just self-deception. Loki, my child, why? Well, why? It's not supposed to be like this. Odin's cold face showed a hint of Iron Man tenderness. Loki shook his head with a wry smile. It seems that I still disappointed you, father, but, his face returned to cold. Jotunheim must be destroyed, and what I said, even the father of the gods cannot be changed. Odin shook his head. No, actually. Reach out and grab the void. The Eternal Spear flew over on its own, and although it did not change the situation in which their Rainbow Bridge continued to fight Jotunheim, the Eternal Spear could do a lot. For example, at the moment, Loki shouted, feeling bad. What are you going to do? Odin stood in front of him with the Spear of Eternity in his hand, and after a loud shout, he slammed into the Rainbow Bridge. Click. A crisp sound resounded around the Rainbow Bridge. Especially Heidama, who had been frozen on the bridge deck by Loki with the icebox earlier. His eyes were even more shocked. Ansem revealed his figure. In the original play, it should be that Thor split the Rainbow Bridge, and now it is Odin. The greatness and elusiveness of fate. As always, Heidama flew in. Silky and smooth, Heidama fell straight to Ansem's feet. Odin looked at him. Drink. Loud shout again. Click. No. Loki's face changed drastically, and he shook his head. I'm about to erase it all. Won't you give me even the last bit of honor? Odin looked indifferent. Child, this is not an honor you should pursue. Any honor that can only be obtained through killing is just a beauty of destruction, not worth expecting. Click, 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 boom. The Rainbow Bridge shattered as a whole, and the powerful energy wave exploded instantly. Because there was no guidance from the Rainbow Bridge, setting off the two of them. Even Ansem, who was standing behind and watching the ceremony, couldn't help but cast an iron armor spell. Very powerful. At the edge, because Loki was standing too far away, at this moment, he actually pulled Odin's Eternal Spear to hang below, and because of the reaction caused by the huge energy explosion of the Rainbow Bridge, and because of the special environment of Asgard, a cosmic wormhole was created underneath. It is attracting everything that falls from Asgard, such as water, matter, and Loki. Gravity is no less strong than a black hole. Odin, Loki, Million. Don't let go. Ansem poked his head out and looked at it. It was indeed very interesting. According to their understanding of the Marvel world, this thing should be a space wormhole formed by chance. If you fall, you may reach the other end of the wormhole, maybe a living planet, maybe a special area. Can't die anyway. Turn to look at Odin. In other words, Odin can save him, right? He will fly. Yes. O Queen of Odin, the father of the gods cannot fly now. Poof. The two turned their heads to look at Ansem. How could the teenage immature face be so annoying? Is this where you should laugh? Ansem shrugged. Your Excellency Loki, it seems that what you wanted to do failed, but, fortunately, the deal between us is completed. Speechless, silent. Turning his head to look at Odin, even if he said it now with a look of disappointment, Loki had enough strength to return to the Rainbow Bridge. Odin, however, was only silent. Shaking your head, with a wry smile, he released his grip on the Eternal Spear. There is no place for me here. Loki. Odin was silent on the Rainbow Bridge, without saying a word. Ansem, gee, the God King is really brave, an artifact said to be destroyed if it was destroyed. But without the Rainbow Bridge I don't seem to be able to go back. HMPH, cunning boy. Didn't you capture Thor's 4 warriors to blackmail him, or even use Sol to blackmail me? Ansem was surprised. The God King is worthy of being a God King. Please be sorry, I just want to go back to Earth with peace of mind. There's not a hint of apology on your face. Ansem withdrew his smile. Why should I accompany your family to act? Not everyone is a little baby over 1,000 years old. It takes such a long time to grow up under a long lifespan, and it deserves to be done. Then, His Majesty the God King should send me back, right? After all, I don't necessarily die, but Thor may not. Even if he doesn't die, But once the 4 warriors die, Thor may not become another person. Odindam's snort slammed the eternal spear on the broken edge of the rainbow bridge. A one-eyed eye seems to see all the ghosts in the world. The human heart, but that's it. It wasn't supposed to be this way, but your intervention made things start to change. The next time we meet, the friendship between Loki and Thor will at least be interesting. And, didn't the God King see this and let Loki fall? Odin was silent. Suddenly laughed. Very good, I believe you will have enough time to grow, but unfortunately, it would be better if it were better. Heidama. Cracks appeared from the ice that trapped Heidama, and then a bang was revealed. My god. Well, send this Anson mage back to Midgard. Of course. Holding the guardian sword, his eyes were white without a trace of black pupils. Suddenly, energy poured into the guardian sword on the rainbow bridge, and in one fell swoop towards Anson, the familiar rainbow bridge power took Anson away from Asgard. My god, he is not a good man. Odin nodded. Yes, he is more cunning than Loki, but only such a person can live longer. Fix the rainbow bridge. Yes. Earth, desert town. The scene itself is not very good. The people brought by Spencer grabbed the 4 warriors to blackmail Thor, and the people of S.H.I.E.L.D. watched with guns on the side. There is a double eating posture. Look, what is this? Jane pointed to the air. The clouds converge and faintly colored light appears. Rainbow bridge? No, why aren't we here? Said Sif. After waiting for the rainbow bridge to disappear and leave a pattern on the ground, Anson walked out, gracefully saluted with his wand. Good afternoon, Anson salutes you. Chapter 066. Anson. Thor pointed at him with his hand in Minna. Why are you doing this, and what's going on in Asgard? You're welcome between words. Anson raised his eyebrows. Did he feel that his divine power was restored again? Your Excellency Thor, you are not qualified to say this to me from the point of view of strength, and I advise you to shut up. Presumptuous. The 4 warriors were furious. Anson walked over and looked condescendingly at a 4 warrior with visible sashimi on his arms and neck. It's very arrogant. Tatuka. Cut off his arm. Scold. Damon's hand rose and fell, and although it was a little difficult to cut, it directly cut off his arm. Under the huge force, the magic wand was raised. Agni. Raging. The broken arm had been burned out before it fell to the ground, and what happened in a moment was somewhat unexpected for everyone. Anson stepped forward and said to the man, now that you have no arm, I don't know if Asgard has enough technology to restore your body. But if you can't, you can imagine your fate. Maybe you will drink and anesthetize yourself every day. After all, you are no longer a qualified warrior. The hand pointed back at Sol, and he shouldn't help you, and with his arrogance, pride, and lack of eyes for taking things seriously, I'm afraid he won't remember your presence. Impossible. Is it? Waving his hand, Damon released the 4 warriors. Thor was about to step forward when Sif grabbed him. Anson smiled and said, want to make a move? Anson, I'm Alodinson. Ugh. Before he finished speaking, he was already shot out by a magic strike, and his face was livid. Although this blow did not cause him any damage, it felt more like he was insulting himself. Damn the Atrium people. Thor, don't. We'd better go back first. Something must have happened in Asgard. Sol snorted coldly and turned his head not to look. Young master, this is God? Spencer was a qualified cheerer, all the time. Anson smiled. Yes, this is God, an alien creature. It seems that their intelligence is very touching. You are wise, Mr. Spencer. Mercy is an excellent quality. Of course, this is something to be proud of, and maybe we can be gods too. Ha ha ha. Anson couldn't help but laugh. Spencer, this person can deal with it. The yin and yang. Weird person is the cutest. Hey Idama, take us back. Sir, I'm afraid you can't go back. A bald head hit S.H.I.E.L.D. walked out of the crowd. As if receiving some order, all S.H.I.E.L.D. agents pointed their guns at Asgard's group. Anson, there is a good show to watch. Cryptically gestured to his own people to stand aside, so that the people of S.H.I.E.L.D. were even more arrogant. God? Ha! A god that can be threatened by children. Sidwell's bald head thinks he's done. It just so happens that now Coulson is not here, and he has received some instructions from his superiors that he is obliged to let these so-called gods leave something. Thor turned his head in disbelief. What are you talking about? Sir, I don't care where you're from or why you're here, but you caused at least more than 80 casualties in the town. According to the laws of the earth, you need to be judged by us. 80 people? Thor asked the 4 warriors with ugly eyes. Xifu shook his head. I don't know, but with the physical fitness of the people in the atrium, maybe they can't stand the aftermath of the Destroyer's battle. That is it true? But who gave you the courage to speak to me like that? The little monster has its own abilities. What about you? Shhhhh. Lightning flashed on Thor, and the situation became more and more tense. Suddenly, the rainbow bridge quickly appeared above the Soul people and directly pulled them away. Sitwell was stunned. I had to turn my head to look at Anson's group. Sir, you are involved in few. Awada nibbles on big melons. Multiply. A beautiful green light hit the agent beside Sitwell directly, and immediately fell silently. Sitwell swallowed. Oh, God. He's dead. John was wearing a suit and holding a weapon. Young master, Are you going to kill them all? Of course. No, let's go. Just as he was about to lift his foot, Anson returned to the destroyed destroyer and directly collected it into the space of the king's sword. The Soul family is a big business and doesn't care about this. Of course, it is also possible that he does not recognize the goods. Anson naturally cannot be wasted, at least compared to giving it to S.H.I.E.L.D. It is better for him to take it himself, even if it is to refine the airy metal above. It is a wealth not to be missed. Sir, do you want to keep them? Sidwell glanced at his subordinates in confusion. You go, shame and then retreat. Jokes, mysterious abilities, and the end of one-hit death just happened before their eyes. Who wants to provoke this little pervert? It seems that it is still necessary to raise Anson's danger level and let his people pay more attention. Long live Hydra. Several people around him repeated in a low voice, long live Hydra. When Coulson arrived urgently, there were still several Ansons there. Young master, are we leaving? Yes, Mr. Spencer, school is about to start. After all, I am still a student at a magical school. So what do you need to arrange here? Anson thought for a moment. At this timeline, not much seems to be happening, but it's worth noting that S.H.I.E.L.D. is missing one thing. Cosmic Cube. S.H.I.E.L.D. had invited him to participate in Minil's research as promised to him. But the one-eyed dragon seems to have forgotten his danger and wants to pay the bill. This is really not elegant at all. When the evening comes, the black-faced Fury came to the manor with a suitcase, and he was not even in the mood to tease the cat. Give what you want, but according to the agreement you can only see. Of course, I am still honest compared to you, I am sure of that. Who knows? Fury's voice changed. However, can you tell me why 2.8 you killed my people in the desert? It's not like your style. Keen intuition. It is worthy of being the king of agents, and this vision alone is enough for many people to learn. You guess. Ha. Nasty brat. Give me some barbecue. I want dragon loin. Don't try to fool me, Fury said as if he was asking for a debtor. Virtue. Roll your eyes. Hall, arrange it for him, and get some for Gugu. How amazing is the Cosmic Cube? The magic is the space gem inside it. Huge and complex rules work all the time, like a complex system. Anson knows that this is the ultimate rule. Once mastered of it, Anson can even travel through the Marvel Universe at will. Mom, this universe is so loving. Chapter 067. What disappointed him? The Cosmic Cube is not something he can pass at the moment, and the rules contained in it are the most complicated he has ever seen. Complex and huge. It's like the universe. But his train of thought is right. If he can really pass the rules on the Cosmic Cube in the future, he can even do a lot without the Infinity Stones. For example, the ability of the Infinity Stones to be used by manpower. It's exciting to think about. But energy is a problem, and Anson doesn't think his magic will be so great. This is a problem. Avalon Castle. Everyone was already waiting in the secret space under the castle, and Avalon Castle was deliberately remodeled because Anson brought the wizard back. A huge space was even re-excavated underground for the future shuttle between the two worlds. Are you all ready? Spencer nodded. The ones who should be brought have been prepared, and all the personnel have arrived. John, Damon, Mindy, and even Wanda and Bartro were among them, and behind them were the 50 wizards he had brought back. After being trained by John, they are now more like wizards in the sewers. Vicious, Direct 18. As soon as his mind moved, a force emerged from the king's sword. Everyone was pulled into a deep black space and disappeared. Karmatage. Gu Yi, who was drinking beet tea, paused and shook his head. It's becoming more and more obvious. It seems that he has become strong again, and I look forward to your future, Anson Mage. Pendler Manor. The Hall House elf squinted as if he was comfortable. It's better over here. Mr. Spencer, you take Mindy and them to familiarize themselves with this place, and tell them about the situation in the wizarding world. By the way, call Mr. Quirrell over. Yes, young master. Not long after, Quirrell arrived. Looking at Anson with a respectful face, in Anson's eyes, Quirrell's strangeness became even stronger. It seems that the curse of the unicorn has been working. Young master, this is the change in the wizarding world during this time. Looking through the information Quirrell had gathered, it's really interesting. The economy of the wizarding world is changing in the direction that Anson set when he left, especially the goblins and Ministry of Magic at Gringotts, who now realize why Anson joined Gringotts in the first place, although it is only the distribution rights of Jingalon. But in fact, this right still allows Anson to control the economy of the wizarding world at will. Merlin was meowing. If they remember correctly, Anson's time to control this right was perpetual. As a result, the wizarding world has shifted from basic economic values to another direction, and knowledge is heavily relied on. Because the Pendra family solicited wizards of all kinds, and even bought and traded magic books with other purer blood families, the public realized that the most important thing about wizards was the knowledge they possessed, as well as the wizards themselves. Already power owners and masters. I am wary of the Pendra family, but is it effective? People began to realize that this was the essence of wizarding, and that economics was nothing more than an equivalent form of the social system, important but not fatal. How much was collected? Quirrell bowed. Young master, because of the preconceived advantage. We have collected a large number of books from most wizard families, among which the Black family's collection has all been moved. The remaining purer blood families also trade at least 50% of their collection because of their cooperative relationship with us. Quirrell smiled and said, now the Pendra family's collection is probably no less than Hogwarts. Unfortunately, not all magic books are useful. Many of them are repetitive, and even some are just the conjectures of previous wizards, and have not been verified. If wizards want to develop, they must pay and explore. Unfortunately, many of the rules set by the current wizarding world limit the development of wizards, and the Ministry of Magic is responsible for this. On the one hand, there is steady development, but progress is slow. On the one hand, there are no restrictions on development, but the social structure is inevitably chaotic. For example, the Grindelwald period, such as the Voldemort period, are representatives of their latter. But like the Muggle world, war has always been the quickest way to advance society. If you don't think about the sacrifices, Anson has said that the wizarding world needs change. This is not empty words, it is the owner of power. What kind of sheep to pretend? What about control outside of the native wizarding world? Quirrell paused. We were ostracized, although our movements were slight, especially in some parts of Northern Europe, and even some wizards were targeting us. Who? Quirrell could even feel the coldness emanating from Anson. The naked killing intent. Shudder. Aside from the already identified followers of Voldemort, the Death Eaters, my guess is Blood Pact. Blood Alliance? Which party? Anson was slightly surprised. If I'm not mistaken, Mr. Grindelwald is still closing himself off in Newmarket, right? Yes, young master. Well, that's interesting. Was it Grindelwald's behest, or was it the actions of the Witch Party members themselves? Moreover, the Death Eaters did not seem to be active in the homeland anymore. It is conceivable that Voldemort's actions must end in failure, and it is not good to always conquer wizards with death and destruction, especially after everyone has seen Anson's series of operations. A kid who comes out of nowhere can destroy Voldemort's plan, and to some extent, Voldemort's deterrent power has been greatly reduced by 610 buckles. For example, at this time, Mr. Malfoy, one of Voldemort's followers, had a good cooperation with the Pendra family. Young master, what should we do? If it's really the Witch Party, they are not as easy to deal with as the Death Eaters. And let me think. Anson, by the way, what is the goal that the Witch Party has been pursuing? It's been so long, but I still remember that it seemed to allow wizards to use magic at will, which is, to put it bluntly, freedom. Free, expensive a word. Anson suddenly said, if I give them a new target, will they use it for me? Quirrell looked up, and the light burst out of his eyes. Excitedly, he said, young master, what goal? For example, how about eliminating human tyranny in the world belonging to wizards? This Quirrell only felt like crazy paving. Looking at Anson's eyes were a little crazy. Yes, the young master has always had a charm that makes wizards feel deadly. The sense of destruction of breaking old rules is simply beautiful. He couldn't help it. Young master, following you is the greatest honor of my life. We will all have our own glory, Mr. Quirrell, and I hope you see that. Chapter 068. In the evening, Anson told Spencer about the matter. Spencer frowned. Young master, if you do this, it may cause direct conflict between their wizarding world and the Muggle world, and how to restrict wizards is a problem. On one side are wizards who master mysterious powers, such as the Oblivion Curse, or their Capture Curse, etc. As long as the spell is chosen appropriately, it can basically make waves in the Muggle world. It's dangerous. On the one hand, the Muggle world still holds a power that the wizarding world cannot ignore, even though the wizarding world is only 92 years old. But the technology of mushroom bombs already exists. Also a problem. However, Anson thought about it for a long time. He mastered such power, and it would be too wasteful to integrate the wizarding world well. After all, there will be a lot of war on the Marvel Universe side in the future. If he had a world as a logistical force, he would have a better chance of surviving the disaster on Marvel's side. What about feasibility? Spencer nodded. If we propagate with the slogan of eliminating human tyranny in the world belongs to wizards, there is a high probability that we will be able to obtain the control of their Witch Party. Then there is no need for Mr. Grindelwald to exist, and Mr. Dumbledore is also a problem. Spencer's understanding of this history naturally led to the relationship between Dumbledore and Grindelwald. Once Grindelwald is moved, Dumbledore may not look at it alone. Between them, there is a blood oath. Compared to the Death Eaters controlled by Voldemort, the Wizard Party controlled by Grindelwald was much more powerful than the Death Eaters, and the two were not at all of their same magnitude. The number of wizards, the level of wizard sophistication, the wealth and knowledge they hold are not at the same level. Anson raised his eyebrows. Let's do it. The Wizard Party not only exists in the local wizarding world, but also distributes it in the wizarding world all over the world, which is conducive to our control of the wizarding world. Quirrell said suddenly. Mr. Spencer, young master, since we can't start, why don't we find a substitute ghost? Well, what do you mean? Young master, Voldemort is a good choice. The two looked at each other, as if this was the case. Voldemort is now because Anson suddenly controls the wizarding world in Britain, so he can only go overseas to develop believers, and coerce others to follow him by forcing lei. But it won't be easy, and he needs the same deterrent power as he does in the native wizarding world. Undoubtedly, killing the first generation of the Dark Lord is an excellent choice. And Grindelwald had in his hand something that all wizards could not forget, the Elder Wand. Mr. Quirrell, it seems that you hate Voldemort. Young master, how much I used to fear him, how much I hate him now, but I am no longer afraid. Spencer frowned. Voldemort is not a fool, he will not go to Grindelwald easily. We need a suitable person to induce. The three looked at each other. Anson, Malfoy, Spencer, Lucius, Quirrell, Malfoy. Ha ha ha. Look at each other and smile. Will he be obedient? Quirrell couldn't help but worry. The Malfoys are known for seeing their wind. He's not a guy who trusts others and is willing to give for others. Spencer said indifferently. He will be willing. Pure blood families have huge weaknesses, family, inheritance. Anson answered. Not only that, but interests are also a good knife. Just family honor and continuity to threaten him may be counterproductive. We also need a benefit that he cannot refuse. After thinking for a moment, how about giving the Malfoy family the opportunity to inscribe their rules of the dragon? Things are set. I am afraid that the wizarding world will not know that a conspiracy to subvert the wizarding world and the Mole world will determine the direction between the three of them in a few words. As for what will change in the wizarding world in the future, God knows. Is that it? Yes, young master. This thing is very similar to what you described. There are traces of rich black magic on it, very similar to Voldemort's magic fluctuations. Quirrell added, I won't mistake his magic fluctuations. A grey notebook. Unremarkable. This item was sold by the Malfoy family when the Pendrath family was collecting dark magic alchemy items. If he hadn't returned to the wizarding world, he might have been playing for a long time. Pick up a quill and write on it. Draco and Malfoy's notes. I saw Harry and Potter today. Others are really annoying. The next second, the text on the notebook disappeared. A string of text automatically appears again. Harry, Potter? Yes, who are you? Notebooks don't speak. I am an alchemy notebook. I will not harm wizards. My role is to get my little wizard to answer all kinds of knowledge. Closing parenthesis. Anson smiled. Very good. Draco, Malfoy, are you still there? Anson didn't reply. Looking at Quirrell, how many people still know about this? No one knows except me. Well, don't say it. Arrange another manpower. We may need to meet Mr. Malfoy. Yes, young master. How many people are roughly needed? How about 100 wizards? Quirrell smiled wickedly. Then Mr. Malfoy should be willing to entertain us. May Merlin bless him. Anson, what are you doing? I didn't see you. The wizarding world is really amazing. Everything in the manor will move by itself, just like Avalon Castle. The little girl twittered, shocked by everything in the wizarding world. However, it seems that there is no Hogwarts notice until now. The Book of Access and the Pen of Acceptance did not record a wonder. This is a problem. Nothing, still used to it, right? Mendy shook his head. I'm not used to it, but can I hit those wizards? Ha ha ha. If you can fight, but I don't recommend you do it, Mendy. Wizards are not everyone that good. With one blow, Mendy will surely die. Turned his head to look at Damon, Mr. Damon, and Mr. John. There are still many wizards under my Lee's command who need your training. Of course, young master, but what is the quantity? Spencer interjected. Probably a few hundred. Hundreds? Well, it has been selected many times, and in fact there are many more wizards who serve their Pendrath family. However, not everyone is suitable for training as a battle wizard. Killing and destruction require courage. The next day, Anson wrote a letter asking the owl to bring to Dumbledore. In the Hogwarts headmaster's room, Dumbledore had a little headache looking at the letter. Minerva, take a look. A new little wizard? But not recorded in the Pen of Acceptance and the Book of Access? It can't be, right? Maybe we should take a look. I have never seen this situation. And you know, the Book of Access and the Pen of Acceptance are very old after all. If you don't keep it even, you will go wrong. Chapter 069. Good afternoon, Professor Dumbledore. Professor McGonagall, thank you for coming to Pendrath Manor. Anson was glad that the two could come in person. Dangbredo stroked his long beard. So, what about that child? Please. Everyone in the hall was seated, and the house elf's decent suit was filled with tea and left. McGonagall said, he seems to free. Of course, I didn't force Hall to serve us. In fact we were more like an employment relationship. It's special. Anson, you've gone further than anyone else. Thanks to Professor McGonagall for her compliments. I have always believed that it is not the world that is complicated, but the human heart, and the world is simpler. Dumbledore lifted the teapot. We should raise a glass for this sentence. Well, is honey added? Anson smiled and nodded. This is the drinking method I learned from a big guy. I heard that it is easy to calm people. I hope the professor likes it. As an old bee, Dumbledore naturally likes it. Professor McGonagall was not, frowning, smelling strange, not like a human drink. Big guy? The professor can be seen as a powerful wizard. Curious asked, how strong? How compared to Professor Dumbledore? Does McGonagall believe that there is anyone in the wizarding world who is more powerful than Dumbledore, and neither Grindelwald, Voldemort? That's not even more on the stage. 990 faces. Probably. A few Dumbledore looks. Dumbledore and Professor McGonagall were stunned. Did he become a measure word? Quirrell brought Wanda over. Young master, Miss Wanda has arrived. Ah, it's a pleasure to meet you. Professor Dumbledore and Professor McGonagall, good afternoon. Good afternoon, Quiriners. I hope you are well. Professor McGonagall could see Quirrell's body at a glance, and the rich cursed aura could be seen even by a squib. Is that her? Dumbledore, pointing at Wanda. Then his brow furrowed. There are indeed strong magic fluctuations, but why is it not recorded? Anson couldn't answer, couldn't say that Wanda was from another world, right? But more often, it may be that chaos magic does not belong to the magical system of the wizarding world, so the Book of Access and the Pen of Acceptance cannot be detected. But whatever the reason, it doesn't get in the way. Professor, can Wanda go to Hogwarts to study? I mean, she's very talented, and if she grows up, she's probably as powerful as a dozen Dumbledore professors. Dumbledore, 666. Such accolades, Professor McGonagall said suspiciously. Child, have you ever had a magic rod? Wanda looked at Anson and explained for her. It's your involuntary ability to use. Wanda said crisply. Occasionally, but it doesn't seem to be strong. Can you use it then? Of course. Raise your hand and wave. The red magic power visible to the naked eye condensed in his hand, and a chair not far away was controlled to float and land on the ground. The two opened their mouths wide. Merlin's right kidney. Silent spell casting. Merlin, are you going to finish reading my organs? How did this happen? Wanda Fox said suspiciously. Just think that there is it, don't you? The two are autistic. Dumbledore believes that this child named Wanda may be a dozen of his own in the future, too. Crazy for the world. I think she could go to Hogwarts for her education, but she needs some proof from the Ministry of Magic. You know, Anson, Hogwarts is not my decision. Raised his eyebrows. It seems that you are still a trustee of Hogwarts. Anson immediately understood. As long as the school trustees all agree, it will be basically fine. It's simple. It's just, why is her magic red? Anson, chaos magic, both words come out of the way, transcend the basic magic level, and go straight to the core of the essence of magic. Merlin's waist. How is this possible? Anson spread out his hand. But it's magical, isn't it? Send away the two. Wanda was pleasantly surprised. So I can go learn magic? Of course, but what you learn is not the same as what we normal wizards learn. I told you, you mainly learn magic theory and casting skills and some magic skills. Wanda Meng tilted her head. Isn't it the same? BJBF. Closing parenthesis. Of course not. Chaos magic allows you to cross the basic part of wizarding. You will understand it later. What about Pietro? He needs to learn combat skills from John. His abilities will be developed in other ways in their future. You don't have to worry. In fact, Pietro has already thought of countermeasures on how to develop Anson. But he is not suitable for the root of magic. Even Mindy, they cannot absorb magic and store it on their own like Anson and Wanda. So that it is impossible to cast magic, which is a slight pity. Outside, the two professors who left frowned. Anson discovered the rules of magic through the true eye he mastered before leaving, and I found his physical strength to be strong. Minerva, don't worry, he's a good boy and will know what he's doing. I hope. McGonagall wasn't as simple as Dumbledore thought, and she always felt that Anson would turn the wizarding world upside down. In fact, it's very Gryffindor. What a good little lion. How did he go to Slytherin? Night. Outside Malfoy Manor, some wizards were faintly stationed in the shadows, and there were protective charms outside the manor under the true eye. Anyone who wants to go straight in will be countered by magic and an alarm will be sounded. Let's get started. In the darkness, the 100 wizards brought by Anson began to arrange the forbidden magic. Hooray! Another new magic array shrouded Malfoy Manor, and some magic was arranged. Otherwise their Ministry of Magic would sense it once a large-scale magical battle occurred. Within a few minutes, there must have been a large number of arrows coming, and Anson didn't want to see that happen. Young master, well, the anti-phantom transfiguration charm has also been placed, and no wizard will be able to leave here, but we can't rule out that there is a door key in Malfoy Manor. Door keys? It is indeed a tricky problem. Well, then, surprise Mr. Malfoy and take quick control of Malfoy Manor. Understood. The wizards drew their wands in unison and aimed it at the protective magic of Malfoy Manor, and the lights burst into flames. Except for your weapons, falling apart. Thunderbolt explosion, crushed bones. For a time, a series of attack magic struck on the manor's protective magic, and it immediately shattered. Like the rapid entry of Mul's special forces, the wizards in the manor did not even react. Why don't these wizards stand with them? Especially the wizards who had been trained by John and them were so fast that they could not aim, but they were unconscious with one blow. Damn, the anti-phantom transfiguration charm has been cast outside. Malfoy raised his wand. A little frantically, Narcissa pulled Dilico. Door key, quick. Mr. Malfoy, where do you want to go? Outside the door came the voice of Anson, who was wandering around. Is the Pendra family going to war? Chapter 070. Anson smiled with a casual finger. The chair on one side flew under the butt and sat down. Mr. Malfoy, go to war? Why do you feel that you can go to war with the Pendra family? Lucius's livid face was very ugly. So what are you trying to do? Interested in making a deal with you? Deal? Do I have a choice? Anson shook his head directly. Of course. No. With a snap of his fingers, the three of the Malfoy family were suppressed in their chairs by a force, and then raised their hands, and 3 points of tea flew over. Hall came out of the void, still carrying a house elf in his hand. Young master, Dobby has caught it. Well, let's take him out first. After bending down to salute, Dobby gave Dobby a kick and pulled away. In this way, all the power in Malfoy Manor is controlled by the wizards of the Pendra family, and even now if Anson wants to kill Malfoy, I am afraid that no one will know. Silent. Anson looked indifferent. Dilico, you go out too. Dilico turned to look at his father. What happened today had upended his perception of their wizarding world, as well as his perception of his own father. What he used to think of as the Malfoy family was high. Now it doesn't seem to be much. So where does the honor he is proud come from? Narcissa nodded. Go, Mr. Pendra will not embarrass you. Don't worry, we will come out later. Dilico gritted his teeth and turned to look at Anson. Anson, you won't mess around, right? Of course. The Pendra family and the Malfoy family are good partners. We're friends, right? Of course, Dilico, we are friends. Dilico went out. Anson waved his hand, and most wizards except Quirrell left the place and stayed outside. Mr. Pendra, it seems that the matter is very involved in finding me with such a big effort. Mr. Lucius is wise. Indeed, I wouldn't have done it otherwise, and I'm sorry to disturb their Malfoy's sleep. Let's get blunt. Sat up straight, gave his wife Narcissa a look, and looked at Anson. Mr. Lucius, I heard that Voldemort has been looking for his followers in the past. We are not connected. Of course, I'm sure you're not so short-sighted, and in fact I'm not here for that. Why is that? Lucius was faintly angry. Anson raised an eyebrow. I think Voldemort needs some help. You want to take advantage of me? Lucius said in a word. Anson clapped his palms. It's easy to talk to a smart man. Yes, if Mr. Lucius helps him when he needs it, he should gain trust, right? No, I didn't look for him in the first place. He is not a person who can easily trust others, or that he never trusted anyone. But he always needs help. Doesn't he? Lucius was silent. Indeed, according to Lucius's information, Voldemort was now like a rat crossing the street. And although no one was shouting, not many people were willing to help him, at least for now. Not to mention that because there is the Pendra family in the British region, breaking the rule of the pureblood family in the original British region, those guys who had been faithful to Voldemort in the early years had long since been transformed. Outside of England, there are really not many people who bird him. It was also because most people seem to be deliberately avoiding Voldemort. Very honest, capital is like this, profit first, not unusual. What should I do? He needs strength to deter those he wants to recruit, and only with enough strength will he dare to return to England to fight for everything that belongs to him. Anson spat out a name that made Lucius tremble. I think he needs a trip to Newmungad. What? Do you think? Narcissa stood up. You want him to grab the Elder Wand? Why not? Lucius paused word for word. You want 2 Dark Lords to go to war? No. You're trying to get the power behind Grindelwald. Pupil constriction. It's crazy. Closing parenthesis. Grindelwald had been closed in Newmungad for so long, and as far as he knew, the existence of a forbidden magic array in this prison was equivalent to saying that Grindelwald was weak now, and weakening every moment. Once Voldemort kills Grindelwald for the Elder Wand, the organization behind him will inevitably seek a new master, a man who can deal with Voldemort to take revenge. At this time, Dumbledore was the most suitable. After all, he was also one of the founders of the Witch Party. Unfortunately, Dumbledore did not insist on working for the so-called greater good, and he was tantamount to a traitor in the eyes of the Pullists. So who is suitable? If at this time a person stands up and shouts, Kang Busy North knows. Lucius took a few deep breaths and looked deeply at him. The little wizard in front of him, who was only 12 years old, was terrifyingly dangerous, crazy, powerful, and cunning, and really Slytherin. All Slytherin traits were as if they existed for him. What do I get? Hey? Lucius spread his hands. In fact, the Malfoy family does have a great time working with the Pendra family, and since there is a big ship about to set sail, I can't miss it when I see it. I should be able to exchange my efforts for a ticket, and I hope that this ticket can be shared by the Malfoy family. Very greedy, also savvy. Originally, Anson wanted to use all kinds of strength to force Malfoy to submit, but in fact, it seemed that he would not use it. Just one shock of strength was not enough to make Lucius the Wallweb fearful. The word benefit can be easily done. Anson laughed and got up, held out his hand towards Lucius, and the two held each other. Then, to eliminate the tyranny of mankind, the world belongs to wizards. Wonderful slogans and the future. I think there will be a large number of stupid wizards who will go crazy. It will take our effort, Mr. Lucius. Anson continued, For this, I can also give the Malfoy family a little favor first. Oh? I'm looking forward to it. The Malfoy family lifted the attack, and all the wizards were sent, guarded by the wizards of their Pendra family. When the magic rules are inscribed, Lucius was silent again. This kind of power, he dares to believe that no one can bear it. How powerful! I feel that I am getting stronger every moment, and the total amount of mana is also increasing, except for your weapons. Boom! A blow of magic is sent out on a wand hidden in a crutch. There is a pothole in the ground, at least a large part stronger, and obviously Merlin's powder sausage. If all the wizards of the Pendra family were promoted by Anson with this magical magic, then, who would be the opponent of the Pendra family? Unable to resist. A little caution in my heart completely dissipated. It was as if he saw the characters who would dominate everything in the next few decades slowly being born. And the Malfoy family, now have tickets. Chapter 071. 3 more. Narcissa looked at her husband worriedly, her face not very good looking. I don't feel like it's that simple. But we can't resist, Narcissa, whether it's Grindelwald or Voldemort, or Anson, even for Delico. Alas. Sigh. The wizards in the manor were ordered not to tell about the attack on the manor yesterday. But hey, panic was pervasive. Is it really that powerful? I mean the way to engrave the rules. Lucius nodded. Yes, according to Anson, my physical limit should be the same as that of a dragon, and with the improvement of my body, my magic power will also increase. The power of his spell will also increase. That is, his potential was enhanced. Once upon a time, there was no such magic in the wizarding world, not to mention that now only Anson alone mastered this magic in the entire wizarding world. With it alone, Anson is already invincible. There is no other way. I mean, what he wanted to do was dangerous, and one accidentally even the whole family had to ride in. No more. Voldemort had given him an item for safekeeping, but because Anson was buying a large number of dark magic items, he sold it. But yesterday Anson told him the notebook that Voldemort had asked Lucius to keep contained a copy of Voldemort's soul, which was a Horcrux. If Voldemort knew about it, the Malfoy family would certainly not continue to exist with Voldemort's style. Since they have all gone to the opposite side, Anson has given him enough benefits and enough strength as a guarantee. Anti-fucking-one. So be it. You communicate with Delica more. I hope his friendship with Anson can be better. I need to go outside. Narcissa took his hand. Be careful, you know that there are still us at home. Lucius showed a hint of tenderness. Of course, I will come back, I promise. In terms of fooling, the entire wizarding world gave up. Who else? None of Lockhart works. He has been known as a coward for so many years. It's time to be brave once. In a small city in Eastern Europe, inside a house that Muzz can't see, there were already many wizards sitting inside, and among them were many Death Eaters. Familiar to Lucius, without exception. Everyone looked at him coldly. On the main throne, it was Barty Jr. and Crouch, who were looking at him with a sneer. Lucius looked into his arms. Ugly baby-like guy, but magic fluctuations he was familiar with. Dear Master, welcome back again. I have been waiting for a long time. Voldemort smashed his mouth. Malfoy. I'm here, Master. Timid. I thought I would always submit to that brat of the Pendra family. Why would you come to see me? Master, the Malfoy family has been sharply shrunk. That is a shameful thief who robbed everything by economic means that he considered himself a gentleman. Pathos with indignation. Master, please kill him. Voldemort raised an eyebrow. Yes, I thought you'd be doing well. I heard that the Malfoy family is very close to that kid. I'm just getting to know him, Master. Everything is waiting for your return. Everything in there. Malfoy family is yours. Ha ha ha. Do you believe it? It was surprising that Malfoy, who was known as the head of their wall, would be so loyal. Little Barty Butterfly laughed. Master, maybe someone has some task here. Well, that makes sense. So what do you think, Mr. Malfoy? Lucius was anxious, and the eyes of the Death Eaters around him were already extremely cold, and if he couldn't prove his loyalty, he might not be able to get out of here. Pull out your sleeve and pull it off. The wand was lit, and a giant python tattoo was swimming in a skull. Master, I have always been loyal to you and have not changed, and I have come this time to bring a top-secret news. Voldemort motioned for Barty Jr. to pick him up. Tell me about it. The surrounding Death Eaters had already pulled out their wands and pointed them at him. Lucius said solemnly, I found out that kid from the Pendra family has mastered a magic that no one else has mastered. It's very powerful. Damn Malfoy, you damn it, you still want to continue to lie to your master. Barty Jr. scolded. Lucius pulled out his wand. All the Death Eaters subconsciously set out his spell. Voldemort waved his little hand. Closing parenthesis. Lucius hit himself with a blow, and after removing your weapon, the whole person took a few steps back. In addition to your weapon, it not only has the effect of disarming, but also exists with the phenomenon of repulsion. But Voldemort saw the difference at a glance. Demon resistance. Promotion? Lucius sighed in his heart. Sure enough. Quickly flattered to Voldemort's side and bowed and said, Yes, Master. This is something called a magic rule. According to him, after using this spell, Their wizard's body can grow to the level of a dragon. Hiss. All the Death Eaters gasped. What is this concept? It is equivalent to subverting the conventional magical cognition in their wizarding world. Imagine, once the limit is reached, I am afraid that most magic spells will be difficult to work on. Wizards, at least not directly killing spells, have been greatly weakened. Master, we need to eradicate him quickly. The wizard couldn't help it. No one wants to see such a spell appear, and it is not yet in their hands. Voldemort said coldly, I'm curious, how can you have this kind of magic in you? Yes, how could Malfoy have? Lucius pretended to be afraid of Voldemort's reproach. I exchanged the black magic items that my master gave me and some property. Voldemort was furious. This is simply, he wanted to kill Malfoy with one blow, and others didn't know what it was. He knew it was his Horcrux, Merlin's thigh bone. How could he have such a 2.3 stupid servant? I asked the master's forgiveness. Voldemort was silent, his eyes looking at Lucius for a moment, who didn't know what to say. The killing intent in his eyes gushed out, and suddenly, he laughed again. He also needed to draw on the power of the Malfoy family. None of the entire Death Eaters still have enough strength to support him. Really hell, wizards are wizards. What kind of economic operations? It wasn't for Anson's words that he wouldn't have come overseas to develop believers. Very well, Lucius, I need your help. As long as I fix my body, then you will get everything you want. Of course, the master will surely return to the wizarding world again, and the wizarding world belongs to the master. Under his deep head, no one saw his snickering eyes. Do you have any attention? Change everything now. Chapter 072. Master, I think we should continue to kill, as long as we are afraid enough. Other wizards will naturally follow us. Give them benefits. The Malfoy family has a lot of gold gallons. I think that there will be many people to follow directly in the name of the master, who dares not to follow. Barty Jr. frowned. You seem to have forgotten that it's not just England that has a ministry of magic. Those Ras don't just eat dragon meat. So what do you say? Voldemort turned to look at Lucius, who was sitting on a fishing platform on one side. What do you think? Gentleman. Lucius rose and saluted. Master, they are right. We really need a lot of helpers, and with our current strength alone, I am afraid that even Dumbledore will not be able to deal with it. I think that absorbing enough dark wizards, as long as the master recovers his physical strength, and the others are not a problem. HMPH, what you said is not saying it. Barty Jr. wasn't used to Lucius. He is the master's favorite servant. Master, we need you to restore your physical body. Only in this way, once you come, those wizards who are watching will choose to follow, and they will not dare to oppose us. Difficult. It's not that Voldemort doesn't want to, but it's hard to do it now. If little Barty hadn't found him in Albania, I'm afraid he would still need to possess the small animal to survive. And the Death Eaters who had shown their loyalty to him in the past were gone. He has mastered an ancient resurrection magic that requires the use of certain things, such as the blood of his enemies. Who is his enemy? Dumbriel counted one more, little Harry counted one. The former should not think that the Death Eaters would have to borrow courage from others if they dared to appear in front of him. The latter, under the care of the former, is equally difficult to do. Aside from these, in fact, anyone who is against Voldemort should be regarded as his enemy. So the blood of these people can also be used. It's just that he wants to use the blood of Harry or Dumbledore to achieve resurrection. It's very ceremonial. If any of you can get the blood of Harry Potter to me, I will give you the power you have always dreamed of. Barty Jr. was short of breath. All the Death Eaters were like that. But Master, Harry Potter has always lived in Hogwarts, and we can't get in. Don't tell me you can't do it. You need to prove your existence. Voldemort shouted. Everyone bowed their heads. Lucius, Master, maybe I can do it. My son is at Hogwarts, and the friction between some classmates should easily get his blood. Very good, Lucius. I really didn't misread you. This task will be taught to you. Of course, Master, it is my pleasure. At this time, Lucius said softly, but Master, I have another suggestion. Say, the power of the Dumbledore and Pendra families is growing, and I think we need new strength. For example, Lucius looked up. For example, the most powerful wand in the wizarding world, the Elderberry wand. With it, the prestige and deterrent power of the master will far exceed that of Grindelwald and Dumbledore. Cool. Very bold proposal. Even Voldemort looked up at Lucius, and it had to be said that he was attracted. Barty Jr. is even more loyal. Master, Newmangold's defense is not very strong, and Grindelwald is self-confined. He will definitely not be very strong. This is an opportunity. I'm willing to get the old one for the master. Lucius, no, this requires the master to do it himself. Little Barty, this is the honor of the master. You. Enough. Lucius is right, but I need the blood of the enemy to be resurrected first. Lucius, you won't let me down, right? Of course, Malfoy has always been a loyal servant of his master. Anson, hurry up, I'm ready. Wanda called Anson in the morning, but today was the day she went to buy school items. Miss Wanda, in fact, there is no need to be in such a hurry. We can go directly through Floo powder. Spencer smiled, just like when he and Anson first came to the wizarding world. A year passed like that, so fast. Happily, The heirs of the Pendrath family are as good as ever. It's a pity that the old man can't see it. Wanda pouted. Can't we get in by other means? I read that I was going to enter through the leaky cauldron. It seems that our little witch still needs some ritual. Closing parenthesis. Anson walked out dressed in a magic robe. Wanda's eyes lit up. Is that okay? As you wish, of course. Take the car straight to the leaky cauldron, which is also the only one that Mr. Weasley specially built for the Pendrath family. According to Anson's understanding, this magic vehicle transformed by alchemy means has a certain intelligence, which can automatically cruise, stealth, automatic magic charging and so on. It is simply subversive of people's three views. At the same time, you can also imagine how amazing the alchemical magic mastered by their Weasley family is. It's worth plotting. Outside the leaky cauldron bar, two little guys stood outside. This is it? Wanda was even more curious. Let's go. Pushing open the door, the wizards who were drinking butterbeer inside were all fluted, and wizards of status like Anson would not choose to come to Diagon Alley from here. After all, he could go to Pendra's department store through flute powder. The leaky cauldron bar is often a gathering place for ordinary wizards. Tom, the owner of the bar, sighed. It's Mr. Pendra. Nice to meet you. Do you want a butterbeer? No, Mr. Tom, we need to go buy some things for school. Goodbye. Goodbye Mr. Pendra, of course. 990. Wanda entered Diagon Alley before asking, why did he treat you so much? Solicitous? Half of the property at Leaky Cauldron is mine. Well, it's capital. She also didn't expect Anson to be so rich in the Marvel world, and the same is true in their Wizarding world. Everyone is almost the same. Why is the gap so big? No one could answer her question, which was something that wizards couldn't figure out. If Anson had to answer that question, it would probably be, others do not have enough strength to support their greed. One shop. This is the only one that hasn't all relocated to Pendra's department store in Diagon Alley, and Ollivander thinks it's better. Huh? Mr. Pendra has the fluctuations of other ones on him. Interesting. Anson pulled out his world wand. Ollivander grabbed it, and kept muttering in his mouth. Strange, a material with strong magic fluctuations. Magical. I have never seen or heard of this material. The hardness is very high, and the magic passes smoothly. And this battle core, it should be from a powerful magical animal, and I haven't heard of it. But this method of production is it's a waste of such excellent material. Looking up at Anson, Mr. Pendra, please tell me who did it. This person should go to Azkaban. Merlin's left brain. What waste? Anson. Chapter 073. 5 more. It can't be said that he did it. It seems that Ollivander has more core knowledge that he has not taught him. Hell, it can really be hidden. Mr. Ollivander, do you think this wand could be improved? Of course, from a professional point of view, the person who made this wand does not even have a basic wand-making level, and it is violent to destroy the heavens. No, I mean, can Mr. Ollivander improve? Ollivander looked at him. Mr. Pendra can decide? I think so. Hearing this, he was a little embarrassed. It can be. It's just, both materials are magical and precious, and I need some time. How quickly can it be made with the same material? 10 days. No, 5 days will do. I can make it for free. With a wave of Anson's hand, another branch of the world tree appeared. Very good. Let's make one for her. By the way, freshman at Hogwarts. It's time for school again. What is this lady called? Wanda, Maximov. Sir, which hand to use? Right hand, maybe left hand too. Well, sounds like a very good witch, so let's measure it. Taking Wanda to get acquainted with Diagon Alley, and finally entering the Pendra department store, Spencer smiled and looked at Wanda, who collapsed to the side. How does it feel? To the Wizarding world. Miraculous. I even saw a lot of incredible things today, moving crucibles, animals that can understand people, by the way, and moving ones. Twittering. Anson was very calm, looking at the income of the Pendra department store, which was very impressive. Has the economy of the Wizarding world returned to normal at the moment? Young master, it's normal, but everyone seems to be more careful not to use the golden gallon on a big scale, Quirrell replied. Understandably, thanks to him. Over at Gringotts, there was no move, but they asked if we needed to issue more gold gallons, and I refused. Very good. Goblins need to be knocked and knocked. You pay more attention. By the way, Anson remembered something. When you came up, why did you see so many wizards around below? Mr. Lockhart did a new bookmark sale at Pendra today and did an event. Lockhart, seeing Anson's wrong expression, Quirrell asked carefully, young master, is there something wrong? If I'm not mistaken, he seems to have graduated from Ravenclaw too, right? Yes, young master, but he had already graduated when I entered Hogwarts, and I heard that the Wind reviews were not very good. Not good indeed. Selling it by stealing other people's experiences with a masterful oblivion charm is less like a Ravenclaw and more like someone from Azkaban. If he remembered correctly, it seems that he had cooperated with him when he was carrying out economic operations in the Wizarding world. He's the defense against the dark arts professor this year? Yes, young master, but all his books have been given a copy. Very sensible. Ha ha ha. It's not sensible, it's just fear. After 5 days, Ollivander sent the wand to Anson and Wanda, and as soon as he held it in his hand, Anson felt a strong magic fluctuation give him the illusion that simply casting a spell can destroy everything. It's really different from the wand he rubs his hand on, at least several times higher. Wanda, how are you feeling? It's good, but I think you can use magic without passing a wand. I have secretly tried it. Eyes lit up. Try it. Wanda was excited, withdrew her wand and recited the levitation spell. The teapot in front of him was indeed carried and flew up by a cloud of red magic. Well, the rules used by wizards are slightly different and more complicated under the real eye. Moreover, there is a faint fluctuation that makes Anson unhappy. Is it because of Wanda's source of power? How are you exercising now? Wanda's little face spanned. She was the most annoying about exercising, and she didn't like it as much as Pietro. I'll work on it. Well, the wizard's body affects the wizard's growth height. I hope you can pay attention to it. Even me. So what should I do when school starts? Well, it's probably enough to be brave, and whoever offends you will beat him directly. Won't it be okay? Closing parenthesis. Of course, the students are very good. On the first day of school, after arriving by Hogwarts Express, Anson, it's a pleasure to see you again. Hagrid waited by the train with his headlights. This is Wanda, a member of the Pendra family. Wanda, this is Hagrid, a very good person. Hagrid quickly waved his hand when he heard this. Sorry Anson. Hello Wanda. Hello Hagrid. I need to go to the carriage. You can just listen to Hagrid. Nodding and leaving. I saw the so-called night eclipse. To be honest, this animal is really unlovable. Dry bone-like body represents unknown. Hey, Anson. Hello Hermione, Harry and Ron. How was the holiday? Ron, Harry and I spent the holidays. If you have the opportunity, I hope you can also visit my house. Anson was amazing. When did this person be so kind to him? What he didn't know was that the Weasleys were now almost all living off the Pendra family's estate. The relationship that has improved the quality of life of the Weasley family. Ron has benefited greatly from the fact that he has a lot more pocket money this year, and naturally has a good impression of him. Don't mention it. On the other side, Wanda on the boat looked at the little girl with blonde hair and white hair next to her curiously. Hello, I'm Wanda, from the Pendra family. Hello Wanda, I'm Ginny Weasley. I'm Luna Lovegood. Are you really from the Pendra family? Luna seemed to realize that she had said the wrong thing and explained. I mean the Pendra family is very powerful, and it is even more amazing that Anson and Pendra subverted the economy of the wizarding world in one fell swoop. Wanda, do you, Money, know him? Of course, Ginny pouted. I don't think there are many people in the wizarding world who don't know him, but I've heard Ron say he's a little awkward. Why? Ginny shook her head. She couldn't say that all Ron said was bad things about Anson. However, compared to Anson's big name, she still prefers the savior Harry. Do you know which academy you'll be assigned to? Anson told me about any academy in their past, but it was said that he was going to fight the fire dragon in front of the branch. The little face is about to collapse straight. Luna looked at Ginny and said with a bad smile, of course, this is Hogwarts tradition. You're not afraid? Of course, don't be afraid. The children of the wizard family can fight the fire dragon when they are young. May Merlin bless you. Well, shrug. It really didn't work, and when the time came, she called Anson to help. Anyway, he is so powerful, presumably the academy will not embarrass Anson, right? Chapter 074. One more. Anson. Dilico looked at it while wanting to look but not daring to look at it. Maybe he hadn't forgotten the other day when he led someone to raid Malfoy Manor. Anson didn't care, looking at the freshman branch. He was curious which house Wanda would go to. Colin, Greavy. The little boy walked over to the stool and Professor McGonagall put down her sorting hat. Well, it seems that you are very active, and it seems that you already have an academy that you want to go to. So, Gryffindor. Snap, snap, snap. Next, Ginny Weasley. Another Weasley. I know you're always good for Gryffindor. Gryffindor. Next, Luna Lovegood. Hello, Mr. Sorting Hat. The wrinkled mouth of the sorting cap suddenly raised an arc, and it liked polite children. Hello Luna, eccentric, full of thirst for knowledge and exploration of the unknown, and not lacking in his own persistence. I think Ravenclaw will help you. Luna's eyes lit up. Thank you, Ravenclaw. Until Professor McGonagall called Wanda's name, Anson came back to his senses. A witch full of magic, O beard of Dumbledore, you are really lucky that you have not become silent, so let me see where you are suitable to go. Strong magic. It seems that the body 210 physical fitness is also good, and there are some desires in the heart. Gryffindor. Wanda was anxious. She knew Anson was in Slytherin. No, you're not mistaken, Professor McGonagall said seriously. Child, the sorting hat is never mistaken. Now you can go back. Wanda glared at the sorting hat, and walked straight towards Anson's side and sat down directly, not caring if this was where she was sitting. Ding ding. Dumbledore, who was sitting at the top, knocked on the cup, and the loud amplification of their sound suddenly resounded throughout the auditorium. Everyone, a new school year has started again. Let me say a few words below. What's wrong? Wanda grimaced. I wanted to come to Slytherin, but that dirty hat spoke without asking me about my wishes. Ha ha ha. It's okay, it doesn't matter which college you learn the same, it doesn't change anything. This is? Draco couldn't help but ask. Wanda, a member of the Pendra family. The little wizards around immediately cast curious eyes. Today is different from the past. I'm afraid that not a single wizard will lose interest in the Pendra family. Carve. Hello Wanda, I'm Draco, from the Malfoy family. Hello, Wanda, I'm. The little one is very useful. But no one dared to talk to Anson, who was too dangerous for them compared to Wanda. Although the elders in the family repeatedly asked them to want to have a good relationship with Anson, the sense of oppression was too strong, and not everyone dared to be friends with Anson. In other words, what is the origin of that, Wanda? Ron asked in a low voice with his head down. Harry lifted his glasses and shook his head slowly. They don't have the same last name anyway. Hermione, you know what? Hermione shook her head directly. Ginny interjected, I came with her on a boat, and it should be nice to watch Wanda. The evening will dissipate. Hermione thought for a moment and walked over to the Slytherin table. Anson, I think it's time for Wanda to go to the common room, or she won't find her way. Trouble you, Hermione. Wanda, you go with Hermione, trust yourself. Okay. Are you friends with Anson? On the way, Wanda couldn't help but ask. Hermione paused. She herself did not know. Hermione did feel something in the last school year, such as Anson's attitude towards her much better than others. But now she wasn't sure. Anson's gentleman and polite tone were too much like alienating her. Maybe he's an excellent guy. Wanda's eyes lit up. Can you tell me about him? Aren't you from the Pendra family? You shouldn't need me to introduce you, right? No, Mr. Spencer said that those things didn't make sense. I'm just curious. You'll find out later. Common room. Ron saw Hermione come in with Wanda and couldn't help but say, another person from their Pendra family. I don't know what will happen to the wizarding world in the future. What do you mean? Wanda immediately had red magic in her hand, and anger surged up. Sorting hat, am I right? Ron was immediately stunned. Wanda stepped forward. I'm asking you, what do you mean by this just now? Do you have any opinion about the Pendra family? No, I think he just... Before Harry could finish speaking, Wanda interrupted him directly. Who are you again? I'm asking you, who taught you politeness? This new life, so brave. Ron, talk. It seems that our stupid brother was scared for Ed. George, we should leave this scene. Maybe we can ask Ron for some gold gallons in the future. The two brothers teased without heart or lungs. Wanda was still staring at Ron, and there was a posture that this matter would not go away today without giving an explanation. Ron frowned and couldn't help but say, I'm just talking. Can't the Pendra family say these words? What is the truth of this? Boom. The huge red magic ball smashed directly on Ron, flying upside down and hitting the fireplace and falling down. Before he heard Wanda's cold voice, if you don't have enough strength, you have to learn to respect others. Obviously, you don't have such wisdom. Just walked to the bedroom door, turned his head and said, I'm starting to wonder if I'm in the wrong place. I hope you're not all such brainless fools. Turn around and leave. Close the door. Wanda immediately took a big breath. Luna. It's called Kill the Awesome Stick. Scare them and don't dare to provoke me in the future. This is a trick that Mindy taught me. Luna, makes sense. But aren't you afraid that no one will be friends with you? Wanda spread out her hands. Anson told me that I was destined to be great. I don't understand. You can understand that I was born a mountain and not a stream. I wanted to look down on their gullies of mediocrity from the top of the peaks. I was born a man and not a mustard, and I stood on the shoulders of great men to despise the lowly coward. Luna was shocked. So, you quoted Nietzsche? Well, this is what Damon's daddy taught me, saying that someone said this when they were looking for me to pretend. His face turned red. Luna chuckled. You are very interesting. I think we will be friends in the future. Really? Wanda was pleasantly surprised. Of course. At the door, Hermione, who heard this, couldn't turn her mind a little, hoping that Ron would not have nightmares. Chapter 075. Two more. In the bedroom, Anson was observing with a notebook, and the complex magic rules of the Horcruxes under the real eyes were constantly flowing, absorbing the magic power around him all the time. Just like the original Ravenclaw crown, it's magical. In particular, the part that belonged to Voldemort's soul was obvious, like a black soul eater, intangible, insubstantial, unreal. Of all the Horcruxes, the one he was holding in his hand was the most special. See what's the Voldemort's notebook, Gaunt's resurrection ring, Slytherin's locket, Hufflepuff's gold cup, Ravenclaw's golden crown, Nagini and Harry tilde. 7 in total. Nagini and Harry's ability to become Horcruxes was accidental and helpless, and it was not deliberately chosen by Voldemort. The result. It is not difficult to see that these Horcrux objects are all very representative alchemy products. And there is no need to talk about the things of the four giants. There is even the resurrection ring, one of the Deathly Hallows. Obviously, it is not quite the same as Voldemort's first Horcrux. So, Why did Voldemort use a diary to make his own Horcruxes in the first place? It can also be seen from here that it seems that there are no specific requirements for their selection of objects for Horcruxes. Of course, his later selection of the Big Four can also illustrate a point. The more powerful the alchemy item is made into a Horcrux, the more it can inherit the strength of the wizard. That is to say, the fragment of Voldemort's soul in a diary is the weakest of all Horcruxes. Of course, none of this mattered. After all, Anson didn't want to make Horcruxes himself. It turns out that after making a soul split, the Horcrux seems to make the body mentally retarded. Voldemort, who are you talking about? Here again I have to mention a person, the vile dark wizard Helbo. The basilisk was created by Helbo, and it is recorded that Helbo is still a Parcel Tong, and their Horcrux is also studied by Helbo, as well as various black magic. Well, the basilisk under Hogwarts is a Slytherin masterpiece. Voldemort found a way to make Horcruxes at Hogwarts. Is it possible to conclude that Slytherin obtained all the experimental records of Hallwaves? At least most of Helbo's magic should be in school. Dilico, are you still there? A string of text automatically appeared on the notebook, and Anson raised his eyebrows. Fortunately, I am too lonely alone. Can you chat with me? Of course. What do you want to know? The notebook didn't reveal the text immediately. Apparently he hadn't expected Anson to be so direct. Anyway, he was chatting with Voldemort in the name of Dilico. What did it have to do with him? However, Anson was sure that there were no books about Horcruxes in the library at Hogwarts, and according to memory, it seemed that Dumbledore had taken it because of something. More likely in Dumbledore's office. It means that he has basically no access to it. But here's a ready-made one. There is a smile at the corner of his mouth. Tom, why don't you talk? I don't know what to say. Tell me about the wizarding world today. I'm curious. Of course, but I asked my father, Lucius and Malfoy, who supposedly followed a great dark magician, Lord Voldemort. Yes, it seems interesting. How is it now? I mean that wizard. He failed. I wanted to follow in my father's footsteps. Maybe there was no chance, but my father told me a secret. What secret? Anson wrote down the word Horcrux in his notebook. The notebook fell silent and stopped talking. Anson is in no hurry. Without a notebook to control the little wizard, the original plot of the second school year should not appear. As for the basilisk, it is not as valuable as imagined. What was Voldemort's greatest value as a student? In fact, it is probably only the Horcruxes, or the legacy of Helbo left by Slytherin. Put down the notebook. Goo is still snoring and sleeping on the side, and it is very adapted to life in the wizarding world. Walking out of the lounge, Dilico next door opened his eyes and sighed. Outside. Who is it? Around the corner, Filch slowly approached with a lamp, and when he found that it was Anson, Filch had a bad face. Squibs are also a very thorough group that was destroyed in the original economic storm. His attitude towards Anson is somewhat mixed. Good Mr. Filch. Mr. Pendra, it doesn't seem like you should be here right now. With a lamp in one hand and Lady Loris in the other, there was an elusive longing in her old eyes. Closing parenthesis 0 for flowers 0. Perhaps, this is a person who can take advantage of it. Anson suddenly said, can we talk? Concerning how to make a squib use magic things. What? Filch was shocked. This is the most embarrassing thing for wizards in the wizarding world, and no one dares to guarantee that the child born of pure blood union will be a wizard. It is also possible that squibs. Undoubtedly, this problem has plagued the entire wizarding world for many years, and even Dumbledore has no way to change it. Now Anson actually told him about it. When did he know he was a squib? Mr. Pendra, do you know what you're talking about? Anson looked up at him. Not everyone can seize the opportunity to change. Mr. Filch, I think you should be a brave man. Since you are eager to do it, why not be brave? Why don't you try it? Yes, why not try it? Anyway, he was used to being discriminated against by wizards, used to being discriminated against by mole-born wizards, used to people who belong to the wizarding world, but you can only ask for luxury. Even if it was him, after so many years at Hogwarts, he just wanted to stay in the wizarding world, hypnotizing himself to be still in the wizarding world. Bowing down, please. Honorable Mr. Pendra. Filch's cabin was not large, and Professor Dumbledore took pity on him for giving him a Hogwarts position, and he was thankful. For so many years, I wanted to learn magic through magic correspondence, but unfortunately, things did not work out. I'm sorry, it's simple, Filch said, looking a little urgent. That you invite someone more superior and successful than you to your own home, a few steps forward to pick up something on the ground and place it. Lift out a stool that he thinks is relatively clean. Anson raised his wand. Clean up. Swish. A gentle breeze blows, and Filch's house is magically swept and automatically sorted into garbage. Anson sat down. Can you check it? Of course, of course. He quickly stepped forward, watching Anson sit and immediately crouched down. Under the real moment, Filch does have magic on him, not even weaker than the magic fluctuations of regular adult wizards, but the squib cannot use magic spells. What limits them?